With the prayers of the Holy Father, Son Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. Afternoon. It's Father Joseph Swaden, and I am doing housekeeping. I'm trying to get some stuff fixed here, it's going to be a kind of more of an opponents only stream, if I may. We are known on Sundays for our incredibly friendly banter. However, sometimes the challenges can get lost. And so what I'm doing here is, there's a lot of things I could cover here. In the first place, not that I want to make talking about my life a constant thing, but I did have to go to the hospital yesterday, and I'm just going to say it gave me perspective. I'm not going to talk much about the event. I will simply say it gave me perspective on having to reach people in terms of where they are and trying to figure out how to get people to get better at doing apologetics on their own. And so I'm doing this a little bit weirdly. And so I am, trying not to do what we do on Sunday. What we do on Sunday is awesome. I love doing that. But what I'm trying to do is something a little different right now. And so what I am doing, if I may, I can always, you know what, I want to see, like, I'm going to put both maps on because I feel like that seems fair. So, let's scroll out again. Move this so I can do this when I feel like it. So I might do that. In any case, what I was looking at earlier, for those wondering, and why I'm doing this the way I am, is I was actually looking at Why Did You Shrink? I was actually looking at the writings of St. Cyril of Jerusalem. And so the reason why is because one of the problems that I think still exists in Orthodox apologetics, and I'm going to be completely honest, is that it seems like every time we have people who get into apologetics, they either become, what is that? There appears to be some kind of line. Oh, okay, that's a line from the screen. All right, no worries. There appears to be this tendency of people to want to, how do I put this? Want to gain authority as opposed to wanting to focus on the truth of Christ. Now, I bring this up because people tend to see things as ready-made. People will watch one of my streams and be like, oh, okay, he's into apologetics, must be because he's a priest, so on and so forth. And that's, for those who have known me a long time, know that's not true. I've only been a priest since 2023. Before that, I was a deacon, and I was doing apologetics as a layperson. So I gotta stress this enough. Anybody can do apologetics. Unfortunately, I feel like some people have learned that better in other places because we've kind of come into a sort of kingdom of the cults when it comes to apologetics. Let me see here. Anglican Fundamentals asks the question. I will take questions from the chat, by the way. I'm not doing a whole chatty stream with all of my pals. Where that's not, the Justice pals can't be all the time. It's sometimes it's got to be actually just, talking about the truth of orthodoxy, which is the point of this channel. Anglican Fundamentals asks, have you seen the Patriarch of Jerusalem praying with the female Archbishop of Canterbury in the Holy Land, quote unquote? Well, I mean, I'm again, I hate to be the one to point this out, but before he was praying with the female archbishop, he was making what appeared to be chrism for the King of England, which you're not supposed to do unless that is an Orthodox monarch. So as far as I'm concerned, he's been doing pretty awful stuff for a couple of years now. So this doesn't surprise me. You know, again, we didn't ever have the concept of a bishopric. I know that in World Orthodoxy they've been salivating over making deaconesses, and they have liturgical deaconesses, I should say, because everything they do that they claim is tradition ends up being some modernist garbage. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, and it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. So the reason I brought up, first off, this is the Catechetical Lectures of Saint Cyril of Jerusalem. As you can see, towards the last chapter, it deals with on the body and blood of Christ. I highly recommend. This is about 300 pages. If you want to find this on archive.org. It is the Oxford translation, and it's just under 400 pages. But it really covers the basics of the Orthodox faith without peoples. You don't need peoples. You don't need a Jay Dyer or any other person who wants to come and say, follow me. You know, just open the book. Like, this is 95% of Orthodox apologetics, and anyone who's doing it otherwise is making fluff. 95% of it is just opening the book. Opening the book and repeating the book. This comes from the 4th century. World Orthodox apologists use following the canons as a polemic. But forgive me for interrupting on this concept before I finish your thought here, AF. But in fact, up until 2 years ago, they didn't use the canons at all. As a matter of fact, you weren't allowed to look at the canons, as we'd heard in many cases, and that you shouldn't be looking at the canons. Never look at the canons. Like, even 3 years ago, people like Jay Dyer would be like, canon says this, and then they'd quote some Roman Catholic garbage. So, you know, the point is, World Orthodox apologists using the canons, I don't think they can barely read them. You have rare exceptions, and I will say that's the other side. People who aren't trying to be a cult leader are trying to become a professor. So these are the only two kind of extremes I see, and unfortunately, neither of them is good, and neither of them is conducive to doing apologetics, when all you have to do is open the book. So yeah, they don't. They're not consistent at all, and part of that is the canons are new to them, and they don't know how to use them at all. So it's kind of I don't take serious when I hear a World Orthodox say the canon says, I literally just start grinning because I know it's not going to be anything substantial. Lestratius Arganti says it seems online Christian apologists are starting to be less ironic with each other. Like the lines are being drawn between true Orthodox, World Orthodox, Miaphysite. Well, I think those lines had. First off, I will give credit to the Monophysites for being the ones who got in the game first. Unfortunately, that kind of involved some level of deception because they were trying to present as, you know, we exclusively believe we are the Orthodox Catholic Church. No, you don't. Your leaders don't believe that. You know your leaders don't believe that. So I don't take them seriously. But then we hosted, and here's the real story, and they you know, you'll never hear this, but you can follow the breadcrumbs, etc. Myself and then Father Enoch, who was Bishop Enoch at the time, we did deal with a young Monophysite, forget his name. I think he actually did become Orthodox after. But we had a 2-hour program that we dealt with him. And so David Urhan's first entry into attacking Monophysites was actually motivated, and he says it in his early video, by attacking us. Basically, it's like, these guys suck so bad. Look at how they dealt with a Monophysite, blah, 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 you know, because they have to do their whole Dyer cult thing. And so, unfortunately, what they didn't realize is that the Monophysites were totally ready to argue with David Urhan because he's an idiot. And so they jumped on. And it became Erhan versus the Monophysites. And unfortunately, he didn't do well. And so their apologetic grew. And so they kind of jumped in the game first. Was it based on honest principles that they don't believe that anyone else is the church? Absolutely not. That is the only people holding to the consistent Orthodox position are people like this. That's it. That's all. And granted, we have hundreds of parishes all over the world, thousands, millions of people, depending on which country you go to, etc. But the point is that what they were presenting is we are the Orthodox Church, which was a lie. I mean, lies are relative. We have to be relatively speaking. If you reject Chalcedon and you think that's the Catholic faith, then and you're a Monophysite, then of course, from your perspective, you're going to be like, well, we're the Orthodox, they're not. And then call us Nestorians, which is a lie because we literally condemn Nestorius in that council. But the point is that so they did that. They were the first to jump in. So you got to give them credit for that. So then the World Orthodox were on the back foot because their ecumenical partner had suddenly turned on them, even though in reality at the top levels no one cares. And so that is where they jumped in. They became a bit less polemical. And unfortunately, Jay Dyer people, because they're stupid, were just like, well, they're brown. Well, that's garbage polemic. So that didn't work out well, and they continue to stick with it, by the way. They still, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's becoming an apologetic of the N-word over in Dyer land. So basically, we literally have always had the position we did, but we were deplatformed for so long until the Crucible debate of 2023, a date that shall live in infamy. And so that's kind of where we got on the board, and all of the true Orthodox who have channels, and there are so many, you can go to at least 50 of them just on my channel thing. I thought I had 100, but I don't know if YouTube took some off or what happened. But the point is that we came in, I guess you could say, late because of the deplatforming that true Orthodox had dealt with for about a decade. Let's see. I was afraid to read the canons because of Jay Dyer. Now my question is, who is the canonical bishop of Chicago? Because there's like 5. I don't know that there is a true Orthodox bishop of Chicago. Most of the bishops in true Orthodoxy in the U.S. are, with few exceptions, on the East Coast, and then there's a couple on the West Coast. So I'm not sure who would be. I mean, I know there's true Orthodox parishes and even I think a cathedral in the GOC, Kalinikos in Chicago, but I don't know who the bishop for Chicago would be. I mean, each jurisdiction, I assume, had claims over Chicago, but I don't think there's actually any true Orthodox bishops in Chicago. Let's see here. Now catechumens are appealing to them because they are friends, either Dyer with Dyer. Yeah, I would say that they're appealing to them because now I think the Dyerites have moved on to the new phase of lying. First, we're dealing with the true Orthodox don't exist. The canons aren't meant to be read by lay people. Now it's like, it says that in the beginning of the rudder that lay people should read it, and it's a patriarchal blessing from like 1870 something. Then all of a sudden they're like, they don't want to look like frauds because they're frauds. They I read the canons, quote some more Roman Catholic canons. They don't know what they're talking about. Let's see. Norman Ernesto says, do you have any advice for those who struggle reading? I do not personally use them, but I have heard very good things about audiobooks. So audiobooks is good. If you're having issues with reading, that's what I would suggest. But then I would say, before, we live in times where people just plain give up. Like, they're like, well, I struggle with reading, so I won't read. Or I struggle with sin, so I'll just give up. That's not, we're supposed to work on it. So my suggestion, audiobooks, but also take a few minutes every day to practice reading, because it's not a personal thing. We live in a society that largely doesn't read anymore, but it's a learned habit. It is one of those things you get good at. And once you get good at it, It just will open doors to you, even on the internet. Whether people don't often realize it because they tend to see the video layer of things, but underneath that, the beauty of the internet is that it is taking like the libraries of the entire world and suddenly having them open to you. But you won't know that unless you are constantly reading. So my suggestion, Norman, is not just audiobooks, but take a little while to read every day. Even I have a great suggestion for a book if you're wondering. It's called The Bible, and so if even just reading on a reading plan will build your reading like that. Like within a month, it'll be a whole different world. And so let's see. Tikon F says people trying to be a cult leader are doing what? They're lying about stuff. The problem is this: apologetics, in the end, is just practicing opening the book. That's it. Open books of saints and fathers, especially holy fathers. I can't do this without expressing more frustration, and I feel like a jerk. But I feel like this is the stream for me to be a jerk. I want this is the jerk stream. Okay, so I've encountered way too many people in the 25 years or so of apologetics that I have done in Orthodoxy. Well, when I say all you have to do is read the fathers, and they pull out a pamphlet about the acquisition of the Holy Spirit and the appearance of the Holy Spirit to Motovilov from St. Seraphim, and that is beautiful and highly spiritual and deeply meaningful and will help your soul. But that ain't apologetics. And a lot of fathers wrote apologetic stuff, and it didn't stop until the Soviet period. And we're only getting back to it now, unfortunately, in the age of video. So people are like, well, why do I have to read? You have to read. You have to. Or audiobook. The point is, you have to imbibe the knowledge of the fathers. And I don't mean to sound lofty or special, like, oh, you must imbibe the phronema or anything like that. All I'm saying is open the book. Okay? It's not that hard. All right. What video was that? Did you actually deal with an OO in a debate? It was not formal, and it was really more of a discussion. And then Erhan tore it apart because he figured that would be the smart thing to do, which immediately actually propped up the Monophysites. And then, because that's what happens when you open Pandora's box like a moron. In a contained environment, you can talk to heretics, etc., or in a formal debate, you can talk to them, but you better be prepared one way or the other. What you don't do if you claim to be a Chalcedonian is go off on Chalcedonians to make Monophysites look good. That's how you screw up everything. But neither here nor there. Years of water under the bridge. Lustratius says, yeah, they've been going off lately. Yep. And I'll get to your question, Anglican fundamentals. They've been going off lately because the dire cult turned all of this racist, and so it's like, oh, brown cult, oh look they're brown people, like that's disgusting. Like they should really be ashamed of themselves. Like if that's your whole stupid argument, you should feel stupid because you're a stupid person. Anglican Fundamentals asks, what's the best true Orthodox church in New York City on that map? Unfortunately, on both the maps, we use both of them personally. There are, I don't want to say unfortunately, I'll say fortunately, but also unfortunately, there are something like at least 6 cathedral churches, like episcopates in the New York metropolitan area. And then there are non-cathedral churches. So I want to say there's something like 10 true Orthodox churches in the NYC area, and they're all interesting. I don't even think I've been to all of them. I've been to Rocana's, which that's what's the name of that? It's in Astoria, and that is not Holy Spirit. No, Holy Protection is the Matthewite Cathedral, which is also in Astoria. and there's St. Markella's, which is also in Astoria, and there's is it St. Vladimir's? There is a Rokana church in Astoria, which is also really beautiful and huge. They're physically, I'm pretty sure they're the biggest church is the Russian one, and then next to that would be St. Markella's, and then would be the Matthewites. I know that obviously our own Synods Cathedral is actually in the Butler, New Jersey area, so it's a bus ride away. It's about an hour and a half by bus. It's like 30 minutes if you have good traffic from in the New York area. So let's see. Jonathan Hill says, diorites have never been right. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Hill is one of the, he's like, I guess we could call ourselves frenemies because we've known each other since before Dyer existed, and he's World Orthodox, so we are on opposite sides of the battle, but we have dealt with the stupidity of dealing with an incipient cult leader trying to become Orthodox. And so Jonathan says, I struggle with World Orthodoxy, so I'll give up. Well, I see people who struggle with World Orthodoxy as giving up, and myself, because my view is that it's a hard life being truly Orthodox, and I think that people enjoy the comfort of the pews and being able to say Saint Tikhon blessed this church. Sure, it was taken over by the Moscow Patriarchate, like 20 years later, but it's still good. Like, to me, that's giving up. When you have people like the Ephraimites who have to assign lay people to baptize because their priests can't, because they're under interdict if they do, to baptize people, if priests can't baptize people and it has to be done by lay people because of ecumenical guidelines, you've given up. Like, you've already given up. It's been 50, 60 years of it. You've already given up. And I know that may be hurtful to say, but I've actually, and Bishop Enoch can tell you in his own conversion story about how he tried to be World Orthodox and realized that, people who were real zealous for Orthodoxy, etc., had just kind of given up. They were like, there's nothing you can do. But there is something you can do. Let's see here. Sunrise says, I feel like sitting down with a physical books without electronics around really helps me. It does. It does. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm as guilty as everyone else because I, being a child, one of the early children of the internet, and a big fan of text, was reading a lot. It got to the point where, as I mentioned, I mentioned in the debate with what's his name, Layman Seminary, Stephen Jennings, that this was a new edition of, it was a third millennium Bible. And I had wanted to buy it for 25 years. Well, why didn't I buy it for 25 years? One of the major reasons is I had grown used to just opening up the Bible page online. I had gotten used to using Bible apps. The physical book was kind of forgotten. Outside of the liturgical books that I use in the chapel, I was not actually reading a book I bought last year and waited for 25 years. You're wondering why I was waiting for it for 28. It's because I saw it once in a church and I couldn't afford it, and I thought about it forever, and I finally got it, so that's why. Ustratius Argenti says, read a chapter of the Bible every day. I cannot recommend otherwise. I think that's a great idea. Jonathan says, apologetics is just embracing your passions. Okay, buddy. I mean, you do it yourself, so come on. Let's be honest. Ustratius says, what do you mean? And Jonathan Hill says, Erhan's a dumb idiot. I feel like writing that after saying apologetics is just embracing your passions might be a bit of a passionate response, but could be wrong. The Australia says the Matthewite Cathedral in NYC is beautiful. It is absolutely stunning. It is a beautiful church. And let me see. Jonathan Hill says pews are anathema. Well, too bad. You're surrounded by pews. Every single one of your churches has pews. Don't lie. Be honest, Jonathan. Being honest is important, and you will feel good about being honest with yourself. Flower 67AL. Okay, that one's long. My views are true Orthodoxy is monasticism. Everything else is World Orthodoxy. Yeah, you could say that if you'd like, but it's what's the word I'm looking for? The polite way is it's not true. True orthodoxy, being monasticism, is true in a spiritual sense, but when we're talking about the actual, people like this, then it's not. It's not monasticism. It's people contending for the faith, and unfortunately, that is something that we have to kind of learn to live with. You can't just, say to yourself, "Well, okay, because true orthodoxy is monasticism, I guess it's okay for my bishop to pray with Anglican lady priests or priestesses, if you will." That should be, sine non qua unacceptable, and the fact that it's not is problematic. Let me see here. Jonathan says, "Nah, you can't offend me." Well, I mean, I wasn't trying, but I mean, I'm not going to try harder. I wasn't really trying at all. Good morning. It's Johnny from Australia. Reader John is a top bloke. Oh, good morning, Johnny. Yeah, he is. He definitely is. Let me see here. Jonathan Hill says, not all of our parishes have pews. No. But if you're part of World Orthodox, you have to kind of eat everything that all of your jurisdictions do. Like, I know there are people who like to play the Roquefort MP bubble, which that can't last much longer. It's unsustainable. And, Kirill just got sick. I mean, I hate to say it, but most of that generation, even the one that joined with the MP, is dying off. And so you're going to have to accept that eventually you're just going to be part of the Moscow Patriarchate. And the whole pew question, modernism question is over. It's over. You have to accept it. There's not going to be a revolution of Roquefort MP people. It's never happening, despite people like Jay Dyer claiming it will. Let's see. Sunrise says, I went to a big Serbian cathedral once in World Orthodoxy, and they had individual chairs all over the area. Well, I'll be honest, I can forgive chairs. Pews bother me, though. They do. You can move a chair. You can't move a pew. It's usually locked in. Let's see. Memento Mori says, read the life of St. Anthony the Great and the Cobbler. Okay. Sunrise. Oh, my priest is a trad. Oh, yeah. Yep. And then let's see. Jonathan says, we don't have to accept everything that happens in every single jurisdiction. What an absurd claim. The point is, you can't declare something anathema that's in 90% of your churches, Jonathan. It isn't an absurd claim. It's a simple statement of reality. That's the difference. That's why the whole fighting from within thing isn't really a workable solution. Because while you're sitting there going, pews are anathema, 9 out of 10 World Orthodox are turning around looking at you and going, and not caring. So that's not, eventually you have to realize you're not fighting from within. You're the guy in the party meme trying to pretend he's maintaining tradition while everyone else is dancing with modernism. I talk in too many memes. Anyway, let's see here. Do you think that World Orthodox baptisms done in the proper form are effective for the remission of sins? Well, are we looking, if it's done correctly, what you're asking me is it grace in it? That's ex opere operato thinking. That's like, anyone can do a baptism if they just do the thing right. Which is kind of Roman Catholic-y, the idea, because I believe that, if I remember correctly, Roman Catholics said even an atheist can baptize properly even without faith if they just do it right. And that is not acceptable in Orthodoxy. So no, I would say that the fact that a baptism is done correctly outside of Orthodoxy means it can be filled with grace through the impartation of grace by a true Orthodox priest, whether by, chrismation is the general standard. Let's see here. I only follow bishops and priests that are monastics. I'm not touching that. I'm not touching it. First off, because all bishops are supposed to be monastics. Priests who aren't monastics are, okay. They make up the majority of the Orthodox priesthood. So if you're saying that, it tells me you don't really respect the authority the church has. You're being selective. And people who are selective about the Orthodox faith, in my opinion, are dilettantes, dabblers, weirdos. No offense. That's just where I'm not saying that to you personally that you are a weirdo, but I'm saying everyone who does what you do is a weirdo. Hope that helps. Jonathan Hill says Rocor no longer has a legitimate reason to exist. I would say, thankfully, that for the confessing true Orthodox Rocor jurisdictions and derivated jurisdictions such as Artok and Roak, that they have a legitimate reason to exist, and UConn 362 has a legitimate reason to exist. Now, granted, if you believe the Moscow Patriarchate is the true church, then you claiming the mantle of Rocor would mean you don't have a legitimate reason to exist. I thought you were Rocor, though, Jonathan, so I'm a little confused. Ustrati says that's true. See, y'all are ready to fold Rocor, but then pretend that Rocor is really with you. It's like, we have the Rocor, let's shut it down. Like, no, the people who are not shutting it down are now the Rocor. You must accept this because you don't even want the Rocor. You just want the right to shut it down, which, by the way, is exactly what the Moscow Patriarchate wanted for the past 75 years. So let's see here. Let's see. Pews are anathema was a joke. It's not something to fight over. It doesn't. I'm not saying that it was. I didn't say that pews were anathema. I just said they're a bad idea because they ruin the mobility, the nature of the mobility of the service. Are they formally heretical? It's a no, they're not. But I think they shouldn't be there. I think they remove something from the ethos of Orthodoxy. Let's see here. Anglican Fundamentals says, Father, may you explain the lack of intercommunion between TO? Yeah, actually, if I remember correctly, because there are different true Orthodox communions. So, for example, if we were to look at this one, let me see here. In this one, you have the Kalinikos Synod, which is in communion with the Bulgarians. The Romanians were in communion with the GOC Kalinikos and the Synod in Resistance before it, because the Synod in Resistance has merged into the GOC Kalinikos. So when you see people saying, oh, I follow a Cyprionite position or a resistor position, that's a lie. They all actually were folded into the GOC Kalinikos. There is not really a Synod in Resistance anymore among the true Orthodox. So that's just goofy. The Russian Church of Brod-Agafangel is also part of that communion. And that is, the continuing Rocor church that formed in 2007 after when the union happened, right before the union. So just to give you an idea, about half of the churches that are listed here are in communion with each other. And then the other churches here, let's see here. The TOC of Russia, the Avlona Synod, and the Autonomous Metropolia are all in communion with each other. So, to put it simply, a lot of true Orthodox are already in communion with each other, but most importantly, 20 years ago, none of them were in communion with each other. The Rocor, before the MP thing, was in communion with the Synod in Resistance, which still existed then, the Bulgarians and the Romanians. So they were the actual largest traditionalist communion, even as they were shedding it off. 2006, I believe, was the year where the Synod in Resistance actually wrote a warning letter to the mostly united Rocor at the time. I'm not counting the Rocor V with Metropolitan Italia or the Artok or Roak, but they basically said, if you join with the Moscow Patriarchate, we're breaking communion with you. And they did. And they helped Metropolitan Agafangel make new bishops. So yeah, that's how that. Let's see here. By the cobbler's virtue of humility, and he lives in the city. Yep, very true. I agree. A true ascetic would not have pride and remain humble. Well, then, if you have humility, you should accept that most of the priests of Orthodoxy are married, and that's the way it's been forever. And that you still have to treat them as Orthodox and your leadership and kiss their hands. Jonathan Hill says, you have a jurisdiction called RCOC? A jurisdiction that has a rooster in it? No. I said RTOC, Russian True Orthodox Church. Hope that helps. Sunrise says RTOC, Russian True Orthodox Church. Thank you. Jonathan says, I chant at an Antiochian Orthodox Church in North America Parish. Okay, well, people change. I remember you. If I remember, I thought you were under Father Maximus. You used to talk about that a lot, and I just assume he's in Roquefort MP, and I don't know what happened to him. That to compromise gives the eyes. Sunrise says, I mean, to be fair, you're supposed to stand during the liturgy unless you are ill or old. No, that is correct. Now, an exception that a lot of people are not aware of, and people sat on the sides or even sat on the floor, is the Kathisma Matins, because those actually can be set, that you can sit down for those. But again, that doesn't mean you need a pew. You can also sit on the floor, you can sit on the chairs on the side, on the benches, if you want to. A lot of people don't, and ideally, you probably shouldn't, because it's better for your health to, stand more. Let's see here. So yeah, I would agree, Sunrise. I think standing is better. It's just better. I follow mostly Mount Athos and other No, that's not how you do things. And you probably don't even know about Esphigmenon. Go learn about Esphigmenon, then come back. Or talk. Okay. Oh, for Jonathan says, I am under Father Maximus. He's still in Roquefort. Okay, so you just go to the Antiochian church to chant because, just like doing that, I guess. Like when I think of, and maybe this is because of the disjointed nature and the elderism that you find even in World Orthodoxy, when people say I'm under a priest, but I don't actually go to his church. It doesn't quite make sense to me. I'm used to, you have a church, you're baptized in the church, you go to that church and you stay in that church and you go to church there. So I can't understand the idea that you're on loan. I guess as a reader that's possible, but I don't get it. Let's see. What about Stasidia? Yep, that's true. That it is permissible to sit during the Psalms and Matins. It's not permissible to sit during all of Matins. So just right, because they're that's why they're called what they are. They're the sitting verses. So I just remember when I was in World Orthodox, they'd have people sitting for like 40% of the service. I hate to say this, but once you put your keister down on the chair, it reduces your desire to get back up. You want to relax. That's why, once you get to the sermon, everyone sits down. Yeah, most of them ain't getting back up, especially if the priest likes to ramble and garble on about what he thinks the gospel today should be about. By the way, for the record, people who think I'm mocking sermons, my bishop is well known for doing sermons that are under 3 minutes, and I like that too, and I try to keep that as well. If I can't remember any other details from what was in the Holy Reading, maybe I should stop talking. That's my view. Now, granted, some people have great and beautiful long sermons. St. John Chrysostom had great and long sermons, but he is also famous for writing Here I Am Alone Again in the summer, because even though those sermons read great, I guess they were kind of long. But I highly recommend reading him, because you'll learn a lot more than you will off the internet. Let's see here. Standing is Orthodox, sitting is RC, sitting with coffee and cell phone is Protestant. To be fair, I don't think Protestants actually eat or drink anything during the service, but the eating I think is actually part of the service. But I don't even get it. I'm not going to judge people that I don't know. I will say that their services are weird and don't seem like church. I travel too much for work to confess to the local parish that I attend. It's been this way for me for years. Okay, I guess. Look, I understand there are special cases, but I just don't want that to. The problem is you have to realize there's something that's called amplification. Especially when you're on the internet, So if you don't make the qualifier and you just, say, I go to church like 300 miles away and my spiritual father is 500 miles in the other direction, people might get the impression that that's the way Orthodoxy should be and is normal, and it's not. It's not. It's absolutely not. And the idea that we think it is remote Orthodoxy or online Orthodoxy, guys, no, that's not how it works. You have to, you got to go to church. My church is 300 miles away. Okay, you know what? Fine, but you got to show up. Maybe not every week. Maybe once a month. Maybe once every 4 months because you can only afford that. And then you have to do typical at home. Fine. But I think too many people make excuses. They look at like the map here and then they see it as a buffet. They're like, well, I am right next to this GOC church, but it's kind of small. And I saw a big cathedral that was Russian, and I really like old believer chants. So I think I'm gonna align myself with that, even though that is like half the country away. Like, no, that's not how you do things. If there's a GOC church that's near you, just go there. Stop doing the thing, the online thing where everything becomes Amazon. Too many people look at this map and just see categorizations on the left side and go, I've got lots of choices. If you use the right side of the map and scroll up to where your house is, you'll see those choices will diminish significantly. Let's see what we got. Why does the name Jonathan Hill sound familiar? Have you done? Yeah, he's done apologetics for a very long time. As I mentioned, I've known Jonathan, and he was doing apologetics before anyone ever heard of Jay Dyer. And I've argued with him ever since. But since the Dyerites hate both of us. Anyway, let's see here. What are your thoughts on the claim that Nestorius approved the Council of Chalcedon? I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's you see, a part of me just wants to utter that it is the fecal product of a male bovine, and it has been well known that the Nestorians do not accept Chalcedon. That's why they have their own separate church, the churches of the East, etc. And then some of them became pro-Chalcedonian later, oftentimes in alignment with the papacy. So, no, I don't automatically think, okay, you're great with everything because you accept Chalcedon if you also accept the papacy. Atomic Lead says, bless Father. Good afternoon to you and yours and everyone in the chat. May God bless you in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit. That is Atomic Lead, who writes our normal theme song, he wrote our normal theme song, which we play on the Sunday show. And Sean Sidonia says, I swear I used to attend a non-denominational laser church. And that was me sitting with my coffee. Okay, I believe you. I don't doubt. I don't want to invalidate your experiences. But the point is that, yeah, that's just weird. But the lasers, I will say the lasers, there's nothing good about that. I want to say it looks more like Star Wars, but it's not. It's people in t-shirts and they just, oh man, it's just sad. Why can't they just respect the stuff? Don't get me wrong. When I was a Roman Catholic many, many years ago, when I was a college student, I used to think that lasers were cool and they'd probably be great in church. But I also thought that they should make a Pink Floyd mask because I was a dumb Roman Catholic kid. So, I don't, I don't think it's a good idea. Let's see. Titus Flavia says, I'm glad you did not include the Ecuadorian fraudster Chrysostom. He is a faker. Cheers. I don't know what happened with Chrysostomus of Ecuador. He, for a short while, he was with the Avlona Synod. I met him when I went to Greece, and he struck me as a very kind man. I don't know what happened to him afterwards. So, but I've never had a problem with him. So I notice I've gotten quite a few people going, he's a faker. I don't know. Are you guys in Ecuador and angry or something? Because there are true Orthodox you could join, that are in in other communions. So you don't have to don't spend your life staying mad. Um, I don't think he's hurt anyone, and I don't think he's a pervert, and that's my basic standard. If you're like a murderous or monstrous pervert or weirdo or like fraud is a hard claim to make unless you have some like empty paste, checkbooks from grannies or something. Like that's just an accusation. I don't know what to do with that. Sean said, when I was an atheist in my early 20s, I tried attending a Protestant church that was a mega church and felt like a theater. My seat could recline, and I had a cup holder for my guy. Okay, I guess this is a thing. I guess church coffee is a thing. Wow, it's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy when you think about it. I do not have a goal right now. I mean, that doesn't mean I should make a goal. Let me just make a goal because, frankly, not having a goal is always a problem. And I am always short. So it's probably a good idea to make a goal. And I apologize for not putting one out there earlier. So I'm just going to say this. And because this is not a typical show, I'm doing this a little bit different. Help keep the lights on. Support us by subscribing or donating at NFTU.net with various options like PayPal, Cash App, BTC, LTC, or XMR, or on GiveSendGo. Just look in the description. Well, why would you have all these options open? Because people prefer to pay in their own way. PayPal takes 30%. Yes, I know, but a lot of people like doing super chats. GiveSendGo takes a long time. I get it, but also some people like the privacy option. Why do you have crypto? Because crypto exists. So I hope that explains why I have different things. I guess I'm going to make the goal $250. We are currently at zero. At zero. I've gone almost a whole hour and haven't begged for money. But now it begins. So anyway, whatever you can do, help keep the lights on. Support us any way you can. I'm still looking into getting alerts for crypto, but until that happens, which God willing, maybe next week I'll try to set things up. You got to actually tell me. Let's see here. Monophysite argument is just call everyone an historian. I've seen them do it with St. John of Damascus. I agree. And that, to me, right off the bat, is why there's a lot of reasons not to be a monophysite, but one of the biggest and notorious reasons is when your accusation towards your enemies are lies. If they're lies, you have to seriously ask yourself whether or not you are in the true church, because apologetics can't be based on lies. They have to be based on truth. So if you're calling someone an historian who anathematizes Nestorius, it is incumbent on you to prove that the other person is a liar. And that's an uphill battle that I've never seen them successfully do. So, of course they wouldn't recognize St. John of Damascus or St. Leo or St. Gregory the Great or a whole long lot of saints that encompass that worldwide universal Catholic faith. Let's see here. Titus Flavius says he does stuff that is not Orthodox. He communes non-Orthodox and basically will use your confession if you fall out of grace. Besides, his metropolis is empty. It sounds like you're a local, so I kind of can't touch that situation, but I can say that I know that there is Russian true Orthodox communities throughout Latin America, and I would suggest joining one of them. Let's see here. There's a GOC in Japan, from what I understand, that is a lay mission, but I might be wrong. And I assume that probably fall under Bishop Daniel of Indonesia. Let's see here. Storm Curtis says, howdy. Memento, yeah, it's pretty wild. They had well over $500,000 invested in the lighting system alone and the church-branded coffee shop. Church-branded coffee shop. Wow. St. Tikhon Seminary. That's an amazing thing to have, a church-branded coffee shop. We should have a church-branded coffee shop. I talk about this all the time. I mean, I do run the cafe, so kind of should. Might happen. Have to talk to people. Hasn't happened yet. It's been kind of busy. Let's see here. Let me see something there. That is interesting. What is this? New and interesting features on the StreamYard. That's why it's also a housekeeping stream. Because as you'll notice, I've pretty much fixed the mobility problem on the camera. Oh, whoa, whoa. Thank you so much for helping keep the lights on. Sunrise with Fronima. That's it. Thank you for granting me with $10 worth of Fronima. I will add that right now to the Sunrise. Thank you so much. And that is that's what disappeared. Super chats. All right, so we now have a super chat to start to that 250 goal. So we're now down to a 240 goal. And thank you so much. Much appreciated. And so there we go. We got super chats. And let's see here. So thank you so much for helping keep the lights on. Let's see what else we got here. Let's go further. Raphael says, if you're confused on the multiple factions of Orthodox in times of heresy and jurisdictional overlap, please study the Arian schism and St. Meletius of Antioch. It really helped me. It absolutely does help. And it is absolutely informative. I put it back. I took it off my desk. I was cleaning. I was going to hold up the History of Resistance and say, you should also read this book, The History of Resistance. It's far. It's far, far away. So I can't plastic man it. So, unfortunately. Let's see what else we got here. So, yeah, definitely, Raphael, very true. Now, Chrysostom is losing people to the Romanian new calendarists. I live in Europe, but from Ecuador, I was surprised Lona kicked him out. Bless Father. May God bless the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Let me see here. And can you please zoom on the map to Central Europe? Sure, I can. I don't know how central you want it, but that looks pretty central. All right. You see, once you zoom in, you see there's lots more little dots all over the place in Bulgaria and Greece. And there's more on the other map too. I guess I should zoom on Central Europe in there too. That's this one that's more Greece and stuff. And so that one you go like here. That one is so you're gonna put that up there. Okay, so there you go. So you have the one map there. You have the other map here. And both of these maps are available if you just look in the description of this video. You can use that. If you zoom in on the map to Central Europe. Okay. Stratius says, even Nestorius anathematized Nestorius. All right. Interfistulachin says, also recently just found out the Vatican changed which popes they recognize as true during the Western Schism. It used to be the Pisan popes till like 1942. Now it's strictly the Roman line. Interesting. It's like their view on ecumenical councils, that they can change those as willy-nilly as they want. So, all right. Let's see here. There's apparently no Alexander V now. Stormcrew says, oh, well, that would be amazing. Not sure what. Sunrise with a big donation says, Fronima. And Sean says, I'll have the large salted caramel frappema. Interesting. Sunrise says, I didn't know there was other countries besides America. I know, right? Like, we focus on the American side. We forget that there's like a whole world of, other lots and millions of true Orthodox that are not in America. They're not American. So, all right. So let's get back to what I was saying. I'm going to hammer this point one more time. Read the book. You got to read the book. If you don't read the book, you're doing it all wrong. You cannot do apologetics without reading books of the fathers, written by the fathers, to educate you. Okay? If you do not do this, you're not doing apologetics. You are doing ego boosting. So it's got to come from the books. Why do I have this particular choice? To show you a point that if you want to understand, for example, John chapter 6, which comes up a lot, the Gospel of John chapter 6, the Gospel of St. John, and the reason why is because the famous quote from our Lord who says, "You have no life within you." There is obviously much more to the quote. You must point out, for example, that Christ is adamant to people who doubt that he means what he says when he says that you have to eat the flesh and drink the blood. It's real. It is a real thing. It's massively real. And you have to hammer that point. And this is something that you find in the teaching of the fathers. Whether you use St. Cyril of Jerusalem, who's up here, you look at St. John's commentary, St. John Chrysostom's commentary on John chapter 6. You look at St. Augustine's commentary on St. John chapter 6. You look for Blessed Theophylact on the Gospel of John. All of those have one thing in common. You have to read the book. So that's going to be my thing. And there's my new thingy. I got to make a new background now for this. It sounds complicated. Storm Critter says, "Oh yeah." Let's see. Is there a comprehensive case you could make for why the Oriental Orthodox are lying and dishonest? No. And I will tell you why. Because deception, even self-deception, self-deception, I guess, you could make a case for that they're being self-deceptive, but you couldn't make a case that they're being intentionally deceptive. Because unless they actually lie, like if you call an Orthodox an historian, yeah, that's deception because Orthodox anathematize historians. Unless you intend to prove that, and if you want to, you can as a Monophysite, and I don't call them Oriental Orthodox because that implies they are Orthodox, and Oriental just means Eastern, which is why the ecumenists made that whole thing up. Because before that, they were just, the Ethiopian church and the Coptic church, and so they, so the point is, if your philosophy and your teaching doesn't agree with what your forefathers said 100 years ago, then you have no business doing apologetics. And Monophysites can say, well, we hold to the faith. Yeah, but you also hold to the Chalcedonians as a sister church according to the hierarchy of your church, and have for something like 35 to 40 years. That's almost 3 generations for those who aren't paying attention. So I would say that right there is the most potent argument that you have. It's also the one that World Orthodox can't use because they are the other side of that mutual recognition. They can't go calling people Monophysites and a brown, well, I guess they can call them a brown coat, and that's racist and stupid. And people who do it are stupid. But you can't say, like, they're not your sister church, because officially they are. That's not an us problem. That's a both of you problem. Let's see here. What we've got is why can't I just watch TikTok edits? That's on you. That is on you. I do not have the TikTok installed on my phone because I know what it does. It is addiction. Now, some people say it's very good for news, and I will let that be. If people want to use TikTok for news, I've stopped caring too much about the news. I don't care too much. Unless it's church news and it has some validity to care about, I generally don't care. Let's take a look. Storm Curtis says, yeah, I want to help people get back on track in life, but I also forgot about the rest of the world. Well, that's part of the beauty of a map. The beauty of this map is that if I were to share this tab, I can also just focus on all the countries I live in, which is this one, and then I'm good. I realize that yes, there are millions and millions of true Orthodox in Central Europe, in Russia, etc. There are thousands and thousands of true Orthodox in Asia. Really, there are thousands and thousands. It doesn't look like it, but there are, believe it or not. I know because our synod took in at least 2,000 of them personally. And that's not counting Indonesia, so on and so forth. So, and Asia is a big place too, because you got like Singapore, the Philippines. I don't know what that is. That is, okay, that's actually Russia. So that doesn't count as Asia. Well, I think China would disagree, but that's beside the point. Anyway, let's continue on. Let's see how this goes. What else we got here? Let's put back the book so I can hammer it into your heads that you must, if you want to learn Orthodox apologetics, open the book or audiobook. You have a choice. You can listen to audiobooks. It's fine. But you cannot claim I have my authority and that is all. You do not. And I think Stephen DeYoung is getting in a bunch of trouble for that now. He apparently, like, he did that whole respect my authority thing, and people started laughing at him. I shouldn't have put Cartman and Father Stephen DeYoung together. That was wrong. Anyway, let's see here. What else we got? Which Monophysite priest and bishop is fighting against the ecumenism there? None of them. It seems the only lay people who call it the true church. Yeah, exactly. Coptic Church is part of the WCC. They're in communion with the Nestorians, quote unquote, that they supposedly, can't. They're like, oh, Nestorians. Yeah. Well, that's your sister church. You can call me an historian and be honest about it, but then I'm just going to call you Monophysite, and then you're going to cry. So, anyway, let's take a look here. Again, this is an enemies-only show. I don't know if I actually put the link. You can only call if you want to do battle. That's it. You can't be. This is not the Sunday show where the super friends get together and. It just can't happen. So let's go back here. Let's see. Okay, we're gonna go to live chat. We're gonna go to. Oh no, it's not there. I guess I never put it up. But yeah, you can call, but only if you want to challenge Orthodoxy or challenge me personally. It doesn't have to be Orthodoxy because I know some of you people are like, he's not Orthodox. Okay, well, you can challenge me personally. Tell me I'm not Orthodox. You're like, I'm not Orthodox. Fine, whatever, do that. Okay, Taylor Horton with a member chat. Reader John, God bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Also, if you're a member, you do get your chat up on the screen, just like if you did a super chat. As you can see, we have called them super chats because I have no internal discipline whatsoever. Anyway. Let's get back to let me put this in here again. If you are looking to fight, then I will gladly. If this is making you seethe, you're like an angry, I don't know, Monophysite or Protestant or something, going, I don't like him. And I invite you, if you're like an Allahu Akbar person and you want to challenge me, opponent stream. Oh, this is an opponent stream only, and everyone can comment. But for chat, if you come on and you're like, hey, Father Joseph, great fan, I'm going to be like, bye. So, opponents only. Because I want people to know that they're legit afraid. That's fear. Okay? So, opponents only, now available in the chat. And let me put it, I guess I'll put it in the Twitter chat too. But opponents only. Why? Because you can't have the super friends every day. It's just not how it works. So sometimes you have to have your bitterest enemies, the people who watch you, they hate watch, and they think, I don't like him. That's okay. Those are the people we want to deal with right now. Those, and I'm sure they're there. There's usually 1/3 of my stream is hate watchers, which is so cool. I have the best fans. Okay. All right. I put that up. anyone who wants to fight on this, or just is like, I don't want to hear fighting kids and asking for money. Like, let's see. Oh, Lamont says, I would take you guys more seriously if you didn't all splinter all over the place. Oh, no, I'm splintering again. No, seriously, if you want to come on, and because this is what it's an opponents only stream, if you want to come on and display your ignorance in front of everyone, then I will gladly take your call. I mean, I don't mean display your ignorance. I mean, show off how you know better than me. Storm Curtis says, so what is the battle over? Oh, well, first off, it's an apologetics channel, so it's a battle against everyone. If you're not an Orthodox Christian, if you're some kind of other religion, especially one that doesn't like us, I've never seen a Jehovah's Witness on the stream. Could happen, probably won't. But the Layman Seminary says hi. Hey, how's it going? We had a debate, us and the Layman Seminary. And if you just look at the last video, before the last video, you should see it. Or if you look at Orthodoxy versus everyone, you will see my debate with the Layman Seminary. And he's a nice guy. I think he's very nice. My AI says hi. I'm sorry. I just make jokes about AI because I'm a big fan. Let's see. Sunrise says the Pope is about to call in. Oh, that would be great. He's what's his name, like Pope Rogelio or something, and he's in like the Philippines now. Like the Pope Michael died, which surprised me. He didn't look that old, but it turns out he was like 10 years older than me. He was like 60. I was like, wow, he looked so young. I don't know what that is. I think it's that clean living papism where you, I guess, you know, if you spend more time on your knees with a, I guess maybe that's what makes you younger. I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Since Jay Dyer is back in debate, did he say he would debate you? Is he still scared? You know what? You got that for free. You got a free comment on the screen because he's still scared. He's a coward. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Way liar. So not cool. I'm not going to say gay liar because that's wrong. But in any case, the point is that it's just sad. He only came back because everyone was like, you know, honestly, I feel like it's a trap because David Wood being the one to do we should watch the video. The Ortho Bros is a cult. This came from the Protestant 9-hour stream. So we're not going to watch all 9 hours because let's face it, 7.5 hours of it is garbage. But there's one good hour we're going to watch. We're going to watch one good hour and then we're going to read the book. Why do I have the book up, people? You got to say it or we don't put it on. Put it on 10 times speed. I will put it on double speed because David Wood is known for occasionally pausing, but he does speak fairly quickly sometimes. So, but I can't do this unless I get 10 people to admit that they understand how do you master apologetics. And the answer is not watching my videos. It is not. I know that that's a great answer that people love to give, but it is definitely not. It's on the screen, people. There's a hint. So if you guys want to proceed, you got to tell me how do you know? I'll put it on the screen as a question because I don't think anyone believes me. It seems that nobody believes me. What is the key to Orthodox apologetics? And I will only accept right answers. There's only one right answer, and if you've been watching from the beginning, what is the key to Orthodox apologetics, people? I have to at least know that you heard that before I can proceed. I have to know that there's a hint on the screen too. So because I mentioned at the beginning of the stream yesterday, I ended up in the ER. Thank God, things turned out okay. Now I'm not saying this because I want donos. Although if you want to donate because I'm always in the hospital now, that please do. But no, the reason I'm saying this is because I feel like existentially, if you have not gotten the answer to this question right, I have failed and I'll die as a failure. But it's such a simple question. So, what is the key to Orthodox apologetics? It's pretty simple. Books. That's one. We got one. Read the book. Okay, if we could just get 9 more people to understand that the key to apologetics is to read the fathers. Open the book. Not watch a video. Oh, Reader John says read, and he's a reader. He knows. So that's two. That's two. 8 more people to go. If 8 more people can say, what is the key to Orthodox apologetics, and get the right answer, we will watch the David Wood video. Otherwise, we're not watching anything. I'm gonna put on cartoons. All right, let me see. Storm Critter says, God bless. Read the lives and teachings of the Holy Fathers. Memento Mori. That's 3. That's 3. That's correct. Read. It's a book. That's right. Dezine says, book with a picture of a book. Good job. That's 4. That's 4 out of 10. We're almost there. Storm Critter says, what about putting the works into practice? That's basic Christianity. No. I'm talking about apologetics. You got to read the book. Watching 5-hour Jader just, oh, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. No, not watching streams. Streams do not help you become better at apologetics. Reading the Fathers. That's right. 5. And it's a member chat, so it goes on the screen. Storm Curtis says, heard. Oh, well, okay. Fine. Okay, you know what? I'll count that. Audiobook. Audiobooks are okay, so that's 6. Did you upgrade your camera? Looks better. Fun question. Fun question. Watch this. I am now learning how to fix the camera. You will see I have become fuzzy. But now, I am no longer fuzzy. I am now becoming the master of my own camera. Lord have mercy. Hope you are okay, Father. Answer my question, my friend. You have to answer my question, because otherwise it doesn't matter if I'm alive or dead, because if we don't get the basic thing down, then I kind of feel like the entire purpose of my life, well, I should say the entire religious purpose of my life, the entire purpose of my conversion was maybe pointless if I can't get people to realize that Orthodoxy is not about personalities. It's about the fathers and learning the tradition of the church and learning the teachings of the church and expounding the teachings of the church and knowing how to use the Bible are learned from the fathers. So hopefully I got another one where we had 5. Father Joseph bringing out his inner warrior. Don't eat the books, read the books. I'm counting that as 6. With a member chat. Thank you. Read the books. Truth is the key. Okay. Yes, it is. But that's not the answer. Although truth is the key. That's true. But where do we learn the truth? Reading the fathers. Read a book. Okay. Let's see here. School diary. Oh, read book 6. Okay, we got 6. Or do we have 6? We have 7. I'm counting it as 7. There is one exception. You should watch NFTU live streams. No. What if I'm dead? You still have to read the fathers if you want to do apologetics. Pull up the NFTU stream and why are you doing this to this old man? This hurts. All you have to do is just answer the question. Storm Curtis says, amen. Lamont says, books are expensive, though. What about the living God? No. Because here's the thing. If a father is alive, he can fall and become a heretic. And by the way, the book that I have on the screen, St. Cyril's Catechetical Lectures, is on the Internet Archive. It is absolutely free. So you can say books are expensive. Fine. Then download the online book. Then, they're like, well, what if I want to read the physical book? Okay, if you're that desperate to read the physical book over actually like answering on behalf of our Lord and Savior, maybe apologetics isn't for you. And that's okay. It's not for everybody. Okay? But if you want to learn to answer, you have to learn from the fathers. And I don't mean living fathers. They're living too in Christ, but they're not dumb. The point is, like, I'm dumb. And so you could copy everything I say, and I could say a bunch of stupid and heretical things, and you'll just parrot them. And that's bad. That's very bad. You need to read the book. Okay, hold on. Checking my mail. Quick. All right, we have three more. Three more. Let's see. Lamont post link. Oh, that is a very fair point. Here. Then I'm going to show you something else that's really cool. Watch this. Okay. Yeah, you could do that like what Sunrise says, which is just put the name of the book and PDF online. But because people may not know the name of this book, I am going to show you something cool. Watch this. Okay, so it's called Library of Fathers of the Holy Catholic Church, Anterior to the Division of the East and West, Translation Pre-Schism, Volume 2, The Catechetical Lectures of St. Cyril. But now, we click here. Check this out. The entire library is available for free online. It's all been digitized by Google. And I don't mean it's all been digitized by Google as of yesterday. It's been digitized by Google for like 2 decades. It's all there. It's all free. You can find each of the fathers. Let's see this one. For example, what's this one? This one is the Confessions of St. Augustine. And this one is the Homilies of St. John Chrysostom. So on and so forth. So there's volumes upon volumes you can find at the Internet Archive. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. So everyone who's saying, oh, I don't know, I can't afford it. No, just read the book. It's there. Okay, so I just need three people to say it with me, and we'll go to the David Wood video. That's it. 3 people, if you can. Tikon says, Google has the answer. I don't want to encourage people to use AI. AI has been known to hallucinate answers. So if you got to get good at reading the book, and then you can use AI, because then you can double check that the book is being accurately cited, if that makes sense. So where did you click again? What do you mean? That was the back button, because I had gone to the library first, and then I went looking for St. Cyril's catechetical lectures. So let's see here. So, Grok, what is the answer to Father Joseph's question? Grok will not be able to help you. It's a simple answer. I've been saying it the whole hour. 3 and 3. There's 7 people who've got it right. I just need 3 more. What is the key to Orthodox apologetics? Oh, I'm trying to find the entire library. Okay. Hold on, please. I can help you with that, because I know that people are not used to navigating the library. Now, look here. You'll see I looked for Library of Fathers of the Holy Catholic Church, Cyril of Alexandria, and I got Cyril of Jerusalem. But if you just type in Library of the Fathers of the Holy Catholic Church, it is the Oxford edition translated by Pusey. And so this will get you there. Okay. I found all my patron saints' writings on Anna's Archive, St. Sidonius. Yeah, Anna's Archives is huge. It's still of questionable legality, so on and so forth. But, whatever you find, that's good, if you can. Books and bourbon. All right, folks. So one more time. What is the key to Orthodox apologetics? What do you think of New Advent? They use, I believe I forget if they use the CUA. I don't think they use the CUA translation. I've used New Advent before. Obviously, it's a paper site, so you have to kind of be careful with it sometimes. Let's see here. Spartan 1821 says, do true Orthodox teach PSA? True Orthodox use the language used by the fathers, which sometimes is the language of substitution, and sometimes is the language of sacrifice, and sometimes is the language of victor, and sometimes we don't care what happens in Jay Dyer's cult. Translation, PSA is a made-up argument. It is worthless. It is absolutely and completely worthless. People who make a focus or a god out of PSA are stupid. I don't know what your position is. It's either that something stupid, obviously, or it's not. But if you're asking as just a general question, it just doesn't really come up. Sunrise says, what is PSA? PSA stands for Penal Substitutionary Atonement. God released all his wrath and anger and blah 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 on Jesus for our sake, which is just crazy. New Advent is just the Robert Schaff collection with light linguistic edits. Yes, it is. And then there's a lot of other, heretical books like the Summa Theologica. So yeah, that's what I would say. So, what is the key to Orthodox apologetics? I just need 3 people to say it. Look at that. I'm begging for answers more than I'm begging for money. Maybe I should beg for money instead. I don't know. But if you can answer, what is the key to Orthodox? Read the Fathers. I'll take it. That's 8. That's 8. And by the way, I'm pretty sure you answered twice, so I'm not going to count your next one. All right. Let's see here. And again, the door is open. If you are an opponent, you may call in. Otherwise, let's see. New Advent seems okay. Just be careful. Yeah, you always have to watch out. If you're in a heretical library, treat it like you would a library. You know that there's good and useful work in there, but there's also absolute and soul-destroying garbage. Be careful. Storm Curtis says, I believe it was not the wrath of God being poured out on Jesus, but the people rejecting it. Well, they did reject the Son. That's true. But I believe, and I think are the dangerous ways of doing this. Why? Because when you do Orthodox apologetics, where are you supposed to get it from? Not from I believe, not from I personally know, not from I feel this way. There is only one right answer. And let's put it back on the screen. There it is. What is it? What's the answer? What is the key to Orthodox apologetics? What is it? Let's add a little question. We just need 2 people to answer, and then we're good. What is the key to Orthodox apologetics? What is it? What we got? Ancient Faith Radio. Why are you trying to kill an old man? Why? I just try to help people. Okay. Teachings of the Saints and Fathers. That's right. Read the books. Read the books. That's it. You just have to read the books. That's 9, by the way. I just need 1 more person to get it right. Receiving the good word of God and testing to see if it fits into the Bible. I'm not a sola scriptura guy. If I need to be a sola scriptura guy, I can be a sola scriptura guy, but I'm not a sola scriptura guy. But I don't think we're supposed to fit things into the Bible. There we go. Read the Fathers in the Bible from the perspective of the Fathers. Thank you so much. It goes up on the screen. We have celebrations. It's money time. So we gotta, great job. That's right. We didn't even make money. I just wanted 10 people to get the right answer. Yes. Read the Fathers. Yes. Do we get an A on the test? Yes, you do. Let's go. Let us go to the thing. Let us go to, no, not that thing. Let us go to YouTube and look at this video. And now I'm going to start asking for money more regularly. So please, whatever you can do, I beg you. Okay. Alrighty, hold on. Let us see. So we have got it. For the record, I'm going to put that on the screen. I'm going to put it on the screen that the key to Orthodox apologetics, the answer is read the Fathers. Now, I will use that while I'm looking up the YouTube thing to find this thing, the thing of the thing. And hold on. Let's see here. Okay. Response to Orthodox Church. Let's see if it pops up. There it is. Responding to Eastern Orthodoxy online. Now this was a big shindig, if you will, a big Protestant shindig, where they got like nine of their guys together, and they were each supposed to talk to they were supposed to talk for an hour. So you have like these guys talking for a long time. And we're gonna try to see it. Even David Wood looks afraid of what is about to happen, which is 9 hours of chatter. Well, he's actually let me see here. This is Anthony Rogers. He's well known for having a very unique looking beard. Anyway, let's see here. Yeah, I don't take most of these guys seriously. I noticed Pastor Sam Farag, who was a former Monophysite. They had him, and his arguments are absolutely horrible. So we're not gonna. Let's just assume that the other 8 hours are total garbage. But this one, 10 out of 29 people passed. Forget about traditions. Just read the Bible. Is reading the Fathers enough? There are some Latinizers who read the Fathers and conclude they teach the same as John Calvin on PSA. I think your focus on PSA is a little bit unwarranted. I mean, you can hear the word, but as you said, you should not blindly follow the masses, but base your beliefs on the Word of God. Absolutely. But also, to know what the Word of God means, we study the Fathers to understand what their unbroken teaching is. That's why you don't trust living people. You don't trust people who are as cool as me. You don't trust cult leaders. You trust the scriptures and the Fathers. So, the Protestant Task Force, yeah. The Council of Utub of 2026. How much reading until you can say you know the Fathers, though? Well, let's be honest. One of the things that I talked to about in the how to do apologetics course is know that you have to manage your time, and what that means is you should operate under the working assumption you know nothing. So the first thing you got to read is read a catechism, an Orthodox catechism. I don't mean one of these modern garbage ones. I mean like either the catechism of Metropolitan Philaret of Moscow, or which is known as the smaller or longer catechism, depending on which one you use, the catechism of St. Peter Megillah. Those catechisms cover all the basics on how you should know, what you should know to be proficient in Orthodoxy. However, those catechisms are not sufficient to do apologetics. To do apologetics, you need to know your stuff. And now let's say I don't know my stuff on everything, which I don't. Say, for example, PSA. I don't think about it. It is not relevant to Orthodoxy. There is substitutionary language in the Fathers, not as much as the PSA obsessives. So the point is, because I don't know about it, I don't claim to be an expert on it. I also think it's stupid, and these are created Latin controversies because Jay Dyer is a former Latin apologist. So of course he wants to talk about this, and he wants to talk about absolute divine simplicity, so on and so forth, because these are things the scholastics have thought about for centuries. And rather than go back, start over, and read the Holy Fathers, he just wants to build on his crappy foundation of Roman Catholicism. So don't join in. Read the Fathers. This is not complicated. Let's see. Let's see. So it's not a matter of how much to read. No, you read the Fathers enough. You know, to have the basics of Orthodoxy, you need to read a catechism. That's what I would say. And then from there, the things that people are questioning you about, you can read the Fathers on. And eventually specialization happens. Storm Curtis says, I see. Sunrise says, did you watch that movie about St. Moses the Black? Yes, I did. And I think I haven't, I mean, I did kind of review it. I guess I should do the clip, find the clip for that. But basically what I said was, it is a good movie on its own. It is not for everyone. Many people will not like it for their own reasons, and that's okay. But I think artistically, it stands as a good enough movie and a very nice. The movie is not, I should mention, primarily about St. Moses the Black. He's kind of a side character or MacGuffin, or just a Holy Father inspiring a guy. But the point is, he's not the central point of the movie. But when they do go to those scenes, they are pretty cool. Let's see here. Memento Mori says these guys have conflicting theology but came together to denounce orthodoxy. Yes, that is correct. That is how threatened they feel. However, the David Wood one is actually good because it doesn't deal with orthodoxy. It deals with a very specific topic. Jay Dyer doesn't support PSA. Latinizer support it though. I don't care. Do you see what you see? It's like Jay Dyer doesn't support PSA. I don't care if Jay Dyer supports it or not. Do the fathers talk about PSA? Not really. Do you see occasional references to substitutionary atonement? Yes, you do. Does that mean they care about the PSA debate created by Jay Dyer and his fans? No. Thank you. Thank you, Reader Joshua. Don't follow, that's a freebie. Don't follow us. Follow the fathers. We are the worst of sinners. Thank you. Okay. Very good. All right. Okay. By the way, I should mention, since it's been an hour and a half, I do this occasionally. I do mention help keep the lights on. Support us by subscribing or donating at NFTU.net with various options like PayPal, Cash App, BTC, LTC, or XMR, or on Give Send Go. Just look at the description. Right now, towards our goal of 250 total, we are down to 240, and we have made $10. So if anyone wants to send a super chat as we continue on, please do so. Or if you want to do something else, PayPal, Cash App, Give, Send, Go, crypto, you name it. Or if you just want to do memberships, you do it. We do it. Let's do this together. All right. Time to watch this together. What?
The Pharisees in the crowd
said, it's CCM. Okay. Oh, there's a lot of CCM. Oh, that's bad. That's terrible.
An individual speaker, then just please make sure you make that known so it's easier to address your question.
Let's make him faster. We got to make him faster. He's talking too slow.
Right. Well, without further ado, I'd like to invite, David Wood on the screen with me there. How are you doing, David?
Pretty good. How do I get my PowerPoint on here?
Oh boy, there's going to be a PowerPoint. David Wood's serious when he's going to use a PowerPoint because he almost never does. He just goes off the cuff. So we're getting the PowerPoint already. It's scary stuff. So let's go.
There should be a present option for you, and then it'll pop up here. And then,
one second. It said my file is too big.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me see if I can save this as something smaller.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Or wait, I guess I could just make it full screen and share my screen, right?
You could do that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Try that. Very good. While David's doing that, again, if you guys are just joining in, this is Revealed Apologetics. My name is Eli Ayala, and this is the Unorthodoxy of Eastern Orthodoxy Conference. David Wood is going to be addressing the...
I don't know if it's a real conference because it seems like everyone's at their own house.
Topic of, let me see here, navigating the orthosphere, identifying their tactics, and...
I guess it's like a Zoom conference. So this is pretty funny. Okay. All right. I'll shut up.
Their rhetoric. And of course, I don't have to get into detail of what that's all about. I'm sure everyone kind of is familiar with some of the issues that have been going around online, and maybe you've experienced some of it in the comment section. Okay. Again, I still encourage people to interact respectfully, even in the midst of disagreements. Just wanted to throw that out there one last time. All right. And so we'll just give David a few moments to kind of get his notes figured out. I see something populating here. Let's see.
What's this? When they do a real conference, you can go to it. I don't know. I guess if you guys pay for my gas and ticket, I'll go. I'm not just gonna voluntarily go and that's got to be planned if they ever have a real conference, which they might not. They have other conferences. Christus Victor, not Victoria. Christus Victor is better than PSA. Yes, it is, and it is. You do find that in the Western and Eastern Fathers before the Schism and before Scholasticism.
Boom.
We
got that. Okay. And then that looks fine. If you want to go through, you can control it, right?
You see, we've gone from me watching David Wood to David Wood watching Jay Dyer. This is crazy.
I believe so.
Yep. You go to the next slide. Let's see what happens.
Ah.
Okay, there you go. So, all right. So I'm going to remove myself so you can get started. And
Jim Bob, wait. I thought, okay. Well, I mean, I guess he's an ortho bro. I guess.
I will magically pop on the screen with you when you have like 3 minutes, 2 minutes left, just to let you know we're closing, and then we'll take it from there. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to disappear, and you can start whenever you're ready.
All right. Just realized I forgot to share it, so sharing it right now, and think we're good. Got that. All right. All right. That is officially shared. Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching, wherever you're watching. As some of you know, I'm pretty new.
I will pause for questions when they come. Lustratius Argenti says, how do the Miaphysites not hold to the faith for their forefathers from 100 years ago? Because 100 years ago, their forefathers anathematized Chalcedonians, whereas now their leadership considers them a sister church.
New to all of this. Never been even slightly interested in debating issues between different denominations of Christianity. Not that it's not important. I've just always been focused on other things. So,
Jay looking sharp, very charitable. Yeah, they should have used the green one.
Focused on apologetics, dealing with atheism and with Islam and so on. So, always been interested in those kinds of things. And I've known for a long time, my brain is kind of like a small, I don't know, like juice glass, like that they have.
Okay, we could stop on the juice glass. Would you ever reconsider reunification with Antioch? I don't understand you. I was never part of the Antiochian Church officially. I don't know if you're in order to be reunited, one must have been divided, which is not the case. So, I mean, if you want to ask the question directly and pop on the stream, that sounds like an opponent question. So feel free. Sean says, "Is Gen Z say mugging?" Brother, gosh, okay. If I knew that the first comments I would see putting on this conference thing are, "And K Dagger's handsome," I would have jumped out the window and not done the stream. So I'm gonna pretend. Sunrise says, "Does David know about the noose juice though?" I don't think he does. I don't think he has. I don't think he's drank enough from him. Even the evangelicals don't consider the Orthodox to be saved at this point. Everyone's becoming more rigorous. What it's called is ecumenism is slowly going out of style because style is eternal. And the simple reality is that, okay, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop. L's are not. It's all right. Let's get started. I'm going to switch this back to this view because I made this view today and I want to use it.
Have in the hotel breakfast areas, and anyway, it gets pretty full. And if I try to pour something else in it, then some other things spill out. So kind of only focus on the things I deal with a lot over and over again. And yeah, these kinds of debates and discussions were never part of that. As far as Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Christians, up until very recently, I can't think of any negative interactions I've ever had with Eastern Orthodox Christians. Then we got the rise of the Orthobros. And again, I was new to Eastern Orthodoxy, but I wasn't new to the Orthobros because I've been dealing with a group that's sometimes called the Dawa Bros. These are Muslims who use very, very similar tactics, very, very similar tactics to what you see from the Orthobros. So I was new to East.
So he's basically, just to set the stage for those who are new here, he's basically setting the stage to comparing the Orthobros to the Dawa Bros.
Eastern Orthodoxy, but not new to the tactics being used by the Orthobros. If you didn't know better, and you saw the tactics they use on X and elsewhere, you might think that they just...
Is Apostate Prophet still World Orthodox? I don't know. I don't even know. I hope I don't. The last I heard, he had separated from his family, and I don't know anything past that. I hope that worked out somehow. All kind of over like Zionism, which is really horrible and really sad, and so. I tend to look at that more tragically than in mockery. But yeah, it's all pretty sad from what I understand. I could be wrong though. I just don't know.
Copied the tactics of the Dawa Bros, but I don't think that's actually the case. I don't think you have to copy these other tactics. I think these are they're just certain things that work in certain environments on social media. I
think he's trying to genericize being a douche, but doesn't want to say it.
In other words, the social media algorithms favor things that lead to more engagement, more clicks and responses and sharing and so on. But guess what? The kinds of content that produce lots of engagement tend to be, that can be things that enrage people. And then you have people on both sides start arguing because someone posted something. This produces a lot of engagement, and this circulates very rapidly. So anyway, there are certain things that the internet kind of puts forward if you're using certain tactics. And so I think this is just always going to, groups with these kinds of tactics are going to get a kind of short-term advantage. Notice I said short-term there because there's a kind of a short-term gain, long-term loss, but we'll be getting to that. So yeah, just recently started interacting more with the Ortho Bros because they started going after basically anyone outside the true church and complaining when you're doing pretty much anything. So you could be just evangelizing.
Ironically, for the Ortho Bros, these are the true church, quote unquote, is itself believes in multiple churches because it's ecumenist. So they actually, in some ways, this is something David is apparently not aware of, is that they're giant hypocrites.
Muslims, and they'll start complaining that you're not sending the Muslims to the true church, and therefore you're actually harming the Muslims, and therefore the only people who should actually be doing evangelism, whether it's to just random people or if you're focusing on a specific group like atheists or Muslims or something like that, the only people who should be doing that are Eastern Orthodox believers, which is kind of a tough pill to swallow because I think Eastern Orthodox Christians make up about 1% of the U.S. population, so they'd have a lot of work to do. If they're going to be taking care of all of the evangelism. And the other thing that we see is that you're not allowed to go out and do pretty much anything unless you debate them on the true church first. So you have to be debated.
All right. So we got another question. Let's see here. My question is, would you ever reconsider leaving the GOC and joining an old calendar group that's in communion with World Orthodoxy? No. I before I became Orthodox, I was, for all intents and purposes, though I didn't formally change my rite. I actually ended up, converting before that happened. I was a Uniate, and I already know what it's like to be in a loose confederation of communion that's held together by communion with this guy or that guy, and meanwhile everyone believes different things. The formal unity that they have looks more like Episcopalianism, where everyone believes something, but at least the outfits are right and the service is right. That's called Uniatism. I've been there before. And I know that may be hurtful, especially if you do follow Dyer and you were taught to believe that this was the one true church and so on and so forth, which their leaders don't even believe. You got scammed. But I'm not going to join in and validate your scam. Not that I want to compare this to people who have the gender issues, but I'm not going to join in the farce. If you say we're the true church while at the same time celebrating with heretics, then it's not my job to validate you. And honestly, it's not your job to validate you. It's your job to find true bishops. And I hope that in that sense, I've at least been somewhat helpful. Let me see here. David doesn't even use an anime profile picture. Clearly, he's not serious. Yeah, you know it. You were an Eastern Catholic, not officially. I was a Latin Catholic, and I spent the last 3 years of my time in Catholicism in Ruthenian churches, in specifically a Ruthenian church, one parish, etc. So, but it used to be you'd have to wait 4 years before you could formally change your rite. So,
debating them on the true church, or you're just not interested in truth. And so they're basically calling for a lot of things to come to a grinding halt on the internet. And it's just a weird situation, like who these guys think they are. And well, they're the true church. They got the true church, and so we're outside the true church. And so we've got this issue. And
all right, now you're on 3 questions, so this is the last one you get for free. The next one you either have to donate or get on the stream. Those are your only 2 choices. But to answer the question, so you believe the calendar change is heresy? No, I do not believe the calendar change by itself is heresy. I believe it is uncanonical, and I believe it is motivated by heresy. That's the distinction.
Long story short, guy who has never been interested in these kinds of discussions. I now have 2 debates lined up with Jay Dyer, one on icon veneration and the other on what is the true church. So never been interested in this, but now we actually have to debate it because it's just being demanded, and I'm pretty good at.
And I'm at this point, I wonder whether it was a trap Because in all honesty, it seems too easy. I can't imagine that, this is just David wanting to put Pandora's box closed. It won't work to try to stop what has happened with Jay's retirement, but we'll see what the reason is. Maybe it was Jay. They just needed to attract. They needed to attract Jay with a big enough, click monster kind of thing. Sunrise says calendar change was introduced solely for ecumenism. Scientific accuracy is really irrelevant, and that was not the reason they originally gave. The reason they originally gave was to have the same calendar as the Anglicans and Catholics. So,
ignoring these kinds of things when they're coming after me, but once they start going after everyone around me and so on, then it's like, okay, then someone's got to do it. So I might as well jump in here. So I've seen them for the past couple of years. I know they've been a thing for a little while. But just started focusing on them last month with some issues that rose up, and quickly started noticing some of the things that made me really, really not trust their group. When you start looking into their tactics, they rely on what you might call middle school manipulation tactics, like tons of name calling, just calling you names. They'll call you disagree with them, they'll call you gay, or they'll call you a woman's body part. I thought about putting a bunch of screenshots of what they say on the screen, but I don't know if younger people are watching and so on. It can be pretty graphic. And then, of course, if you call them out on this, you say, hey, I just disagreed with you on what this means here, and you're calling me this lady body part and so on, they'll start calling you more lady body parts. Anyway, that's
wow. Yeah.
That's why I call it like middle school manipulation tactics, which if it was one person doing it, that would be one thing. When a kind of online mob starts doing it, that can get really uncomfortable for most people. Then there are other people who kind of like arguing, and they might be fine with it. They look for what you might call pockets of ignorance. This is another similarity with some of the Dawa bros. We've been making fun of the Dawa guys for years because they don't want to engage with people who know what we call the Dawa script. Namely, they just seem to memorize certain arguments, and if you veer off that script, they kind of don't know what to do. And the result is that lots of Muslims no longer want to interact with people who are knowledgeable in certain topics. They're looking around to find people who've never studied something so that they can run their Dawa script, and the person doesn't know how to respond. And that's very similar to what I've
Yeah, piety signaling is one common one. They say LOL. Yeah, so are PSA and ADS.
Seen over the past just couple months with the orthobros, that they'll come to me and say, hey, you have to debate the true church, and you have to debate this, and you have to debate that topic, and you have to debate. And I said, I've never debated these things, and I've never studied them. I say, oh, you got to debate it. And I say, I've never looked in. Okay, even if I agree to debate, I'm going to want to study this for a while.
I am here to help with context. Somebody says, who are the Dawa bros? Dawa, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, it basically means outreach in Arabic. That's their version of apologetics. So to some degree, they say it's broader than apologetics, but for the most part, it's just basically their version of apologetics, which is sometimes hard to watch. But anyway, so yeah. All right. So I hope that helps.
Well, they say, no, debate now or you're a coward. And it's like, what
are you
looking for? You're looking for someone who admits he's never studied this topic, and you want to debate him. And even if he says, hey, I'll debate you, let me prepare, you start making fun of the idea of preparation. And what does that mean? It means you want unprepared people who haven't studied.
You notice here some of the things that I was talking about. Remember what I said? Remember this comment here? I mentioned this before. What is the key to Orthodox apologetics? Read the fathers. So when somebody says, you don't need to prepare, you don't need to get ready, you don't need to have any of that stuff, they are violating the nature of Orthodox apologetic. They're violating it because we base everything on truth and on facts. And if you're not doing truth and facts, you're not doing Orthodox apologetics. If you hear the famous coulda, woulda, shoulda, if you hear could, would, or should in any argument, it is not an Orthodox argument, because we only speak of what is and what isn't. See what we got. Let's see here. Bud's new calendarists use the revised Julian calendar. So most of the year it's like the Gregorian, and during Pascha, the Paschalian is still maintained because they try to say, oh, that's what the canons say. They're lying, but at least they have an excuse. Buds with Buzz, what, $5? Thank you for your honesty. Well, thank you, and we appreciate it. You see, you'll see. All right, that's great. Let's put that in. Let's put that in. So we are now down to a goal of 235. So hold on. So we are now up to, we've made $15. And so we can get up to 235 more. We're going to do great. However you want to send it, however you want to do it. If you feel this is helpful, please do so. And it will help a lot. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Let's see. Stratio says from the OO perspective, the monophysite perspective, we use monophysite in this house here. I think that they see the ecumenical movement as making major concerns. Stop it. They're in the middle of the ecumenical movement. They have been involved in the ecumenical movement since the 1960s. Stop. The OO perspective is I love ecumenism. The monophysite perspective is I love ecumenism. These guys, these new apologists, are not being honest with themselves about what their leadership believes. Buzz with Buzz. Yeah, we do use Gregory from Hanukkah and Christmas. Yeah. Interesting. They do it for Nativity too. My old World Orthodox was just got Pascha. Okay, that doesn't even make sense. No, you'd have Pentecost would have also been based on Pascha because it has to be 50 days after. That's weird. All right, let's continue on.
And that's always suspicious to me. They use silly debate tricks instead of offering substance. I'm not talking about always. I'm talking about when they get into a conversation, they're looking for something to. They're using some trick
gotcha.
Instead of actually giving anything remotely resembling a careful, thought-out response to whatever you're bringing up. They complain no matter what you do. So if you ignore them, they'll complain that you ignore them. Then if you pay attention to them, they'll start playing the victim card. Why are you attacking them? They don't want people exposed to any criticisms of their position. So I had a number of Eastern Orthodox representatives on my channel with me to explain various things. As soon as I would have on a critic of Eastern Orthodoxy, they would complain. And it's just very suspicious to me. Wait a minute, I sat there with your guy and let him lay out his case on this issue. But as soon as I have someone who's going to criticize that, you guys start losing your minds. And why is that? I mean, if you want someone to come up with an informed position on these issues, why wouldn't you want people to be aware of your positive case and whatever criticisms there are against it? When they're evaluating someone's motivations, like when they say, here's why this person did this, they tend to, if it's a non-Orthodox person, they tend to go with the worst possible explanation. You're evil, you're a grifter.
He's not wrong there. Let's see here. We got some comments. Yeah, Greeks are too liberal. It's your hierarchy. What you're going to find is that the hierarchy of World Orthodoxy agrees more than they disagree with each other, and they're all kind of liberal. Let me see here. I'm looking at Rokor as well. Yeah, but even there were people earlier who were talking about how Rokor's time is done. Like, if you're talking about the Rokor MP, you're talking about just being in the future MP. Why waste your time? Just go to the MP or become true Orthodox and don't deal with that. Spirit on, Father bless. May God bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Because I prefer old calendar even if it's wrong sooner. Well, if you believe it's wrong, you should follow your conscience. Spirit on says, I seem to get attacked by both old calendarists and new calendarists. Well, I don't know. I mean, this is a safe space, Spirit on. No one's attacking you here. So let's get back to the video.
You're doing it for this or that reason. And when one of their group does anything, they would go with the best possible motivation as their explanation for why the person did this. And then, of course, there was something very odd, which I've labeled the Church of the Red Herring, meaning no matter what you criticize them for, no matter what behavior you criticize them for, they pivot to, well, you can't say anything until you debate the true church. In other words, you can say, hey, why'd you dox that person? You just doxed that person disagreed with you and called out some of your behavior, and you doxed the person. Or you started posting nude photos of that woman because she said something you disagreed with. And you criticize any sort of behavior, and they go, well, you can't say anything because...
It's worth noting he's talking about real people. And it's pretty awful that he is, but he is, in fact, talking about real people. The question of scientific accuracy of the calendar has never really been an issue in Orthodoxy, as far as I'm aware. No, it hasn't. It's much more about celebrating the feast correctly. New calendars don't even have the Apostles' Fast some years. That is correct. Also, that is a new phenomenon that came with the new calendar. Let's continue.
Because you're not the true church. And so anyway, those are just initial reactions, but it seems pretty disturbing to me. And seeing this from lots of groups, and it just very, very quickly started seeming culty to me. And I didn't know why when I had a discussion with Andrew Wilson, who's one of the he's kind of the muscle. He's kind of the muscle for the Ortho Bros. But when I called this a cult to Andrew Wilson, he got really sensitive.
I don't know about like when he says muscle for the Ortho Bros. I think that's kind of unfair. I think Andrew Wilson is, I think he points out this is interesting.
I don't know why, but I got really sensitive. And then I found out, other people, including people who've left the Ortho Bros, have been calling this a cult and calling out the cult behavior of the group. So
it's a cult, and unfortunately, that's becoming more and more obvious. I don't know why you referred to Andrew as a muscle for the. I guess it's because he helps Jay Dyer now, who orbits him to get up on the social ladder. So that's kind of because like Jay Dyer can't do it on personality alone.
We're actually going to read some passages here in a few minutes. There have been a number of articles on the Ortho Bros over the past few years, both from like the New York Times and other media outlets, but also from individuals who have seen some problems with the group and some who've even left the group. So we're going to check out we'll check out some passages from those articles. But let's see this additional issue that I had no idea about this. I mean, I knew that they believed that you have to be part of the true church to give you to speak authoritatively on how to interpret certain passages and so on. But I wasn't aware of the level of contempt that many of the Ortho Bros, again, I'm
okay. Buds with Buzz says this Ortho Bro label is horse crap. Unfortunately, it's not. I hate to say this, especially if you're part of the whole Dire Core Discord server. It is kind of a cult. I know that there's some very interesting and good people that they themselves are, dealing with it. But you'd be surprised at just the number of people that have come out of that movement and are flat out just they dealt with it and they're kind of a little scarred for it. And so I know it may be a shock, especially if you're just part of like the basic fandom. I'm in the server, but this label is crap. But, well, I mean, you could feel defensive about it, and I understand that. But I ask you to consider this. And why are so many people outside of the in-group coming to the conclusion that the in-group might be a cult? Like, and why is it that people who have left that group also think it's a cult? It may be, I know that may be a shock, and, look, Buds, I beg of thee, come on and we can talk about it. The Protestants are churchless, bro. I get what you're saying. But at the same time, whether they're churchless or not doesn't change the fact that a lot of the Ortho Bros they act like a cult. And there are some who don't, and there are some who barely know about the situation. Wow, okay. I'm actually putting that on the screen. Spiro Floropoulos says, I came out of that group. I was tight with them for years. Knew Andrew Wilson personally. It's very cult-like, and they're not what they represent themselves to be. Thank you. I actually remember seeing you on comments on the Crucible. I didn't know that you knew about the Diorites or anything like that. But yeah, the point is, I do remember you were kind of big, there, and yeah. The entire time I've spent in Dire Cord was 20 minutes because I've been banned. Buzz with Buzz says, I've never seen this behavior. Okay, that's fair. That is absolutely fair. But when I'm telling you this, I'm not trying to just, jump on a bandwagon. I've dealt with this personally in the sense that when Jay started his attack brigades, his block brigades, etc., on X, it literally algorithmically destroyed my account. And the first half a year that he came on the scene, all of his fans were demanding that I debate him, and I said fine, I would. At which point it suddenly became a block brigade. So I'm telling you, there are real things that happen. Sunrise says they shared inappropriate photos of a woman recently on X because she wrote an article. Yeah, and she said that ortho bros are kind of smelly and stuff. And so they're like, hey, we have some, it turns out this guy's are X or something. We have some bikini pics we've shared around. Let's put those up on the internet. I mean, it's the stuff is, it's pretty horrible. Like, and I used to think I was the worst, like, recipient, but it turns out a lot of people got a lot worse than I did. People like even Jonathan Hill, who was on the stream earlier, like he was, and he was a fellow World Orthodox, but it was just because of the cult of personality around Jay Dyer. And I'm sorry if this is triggering, and I hope you're not offended or hurt, but this stuff is real. Some of the stuff the Protestant says here, David Wood says, are stupid, but this is real. My parish priest would never allow that. It makes me question if they're even Orthodox at heart. Fun fact, a substantial portion of them have actually never been to church. That's why they're all catechumens. Who made them a catechumen? They don't know. They don't know that you're supposed to be received as a catechumen by a priest. They're just catechumens of Dyers. So, Sunrise says they're always cussing at you, but that's no big deal. At least no one's shared my fat naked. No, I'm kidding. There's none of those on the internet. That would be so gross. It would look like something like a standing hog with a beard. Anyway, that's the problem. Okay, I'm. This is already terrible. I'm just.
I'm distinguishing between orthobros and regular Orthodox Christians. If whether this is this common among regular Orthodox Christians, I do not know. I know it's very common among the orthobros. So this is Jim Bob here. He's an orthobro, and he says Protestant archaeologist, and the Protestant archaeologist has found a manuscript of page of the Bible. And so the little cartoon here made by Jim
and
Bob.
I got to qualify with Jim Bob because in this particular case, this is also important. Like, he basically just lumps everyone who's associated with Jay Dyer as a group, but that's not true. Like, some of them are not. Like, for example, he labels, I know David Patrick Harry is often labeled. I've been on David Patrick Harry's program a couple of times. He's not like a jerk off. And Jim Bob strikes me as somebody who's honestly searching. And then, Ben from Cleave to Antiquity decided to start his YouTube career on lying, and then spent 2 hours lying about true Orthodox themselves. So it is, it's a little more complicated and nuanced to just say ortho bro, non-ortho bro. It's not that simple. What about Craig? Would you label him an ortho bro? No, I would not. I don't. While Craig and I are not friends and do not get along, he's not an ortho bro. He tried to do his own thing. He originally really did his thing with Catholics until he realized just how much they are more interested in converting him. So yeah, I don't think that Craig is necessarily an ortho bro. I think that they may make use of each other if they need to, but Craig has his own following. To be fair, most World Orthodox parishes will probably not support ortho bros and those people. It is an identity and online vocal group mostly. Yeah, not defending World Orthodox, but just being fair. Father Boniface with a member chat says, Benedicite, Father. This is an opponent stream, so I am basically just looking. The only people who can call in, I'm looking to fight. So if anyone wants to fight, And no, it's not defending World Orthodox. They've even said there was a point where they were trying to rein in Dyer, and that was back when they had Metropolitan Chunky, what's his name? The OCA one that got retired. That guy. And they would have him on and he'd be like, oh, these people have to be placed under our control. And blah, 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 blah. So Wicked Wally says DPH is a very good guy. Probably one of the few people I've met in person and become friends who I would trust. Wicked Wally I met on the Crucible, and I'm going to be honest. He's been following our streams for a pretty long time, and occasionally has very good jokes. Let's see. Australia says Jay Dyer, Andrew Wilson, Cleave to Antiquity are ortho bros. No. I'm not ready to count Andrew Wilson as an ortho bro. I know he is Jay Dyer's friend, and he helps Jay Dyer, as I mentioned, get more popular. But I don't think I think he does it out of friendship. Cleave to Antiquity has shown himself repeatedly, and I will devote an entire episode to this. He's just a liar. He just lies about everything, and he does it to get more followers and to get more clout among the Ortho Bros. So is he an Ortho Bro? Like, maybe he's a transactional Ortho Bro, I guess. And Jay Dyer obviously refers to himself as Pope of Ortho Bros. So Spirit House says Metropolitan Jonah. That's the one, big boy. And I don't see them as Ortho Bros. And I would say that to some degree, those three examples, because of who they are, Jay being the center of the personality cult itself, Andrew Wilson being far more popular now and a different person and having his own mind, and Cleveland Antiquity being a brand new grifter who's 5 months old. So yeah, I get that. I mean, they are kind of a big part of Ortho Bro culture and kind of who Ortho Bros follow. They're like top follows. Although again, Cleve might have 20,000 followers, so I don't know how big he is. Whatever. Ironically, he accuses other people of going for the clout, and then what does he do? What are you gonna do? All right, let's put this back on.
Bob says, gonna get this ancient manuscript back to the lab to interpret itself. Now, I mean, think about the underlying assumption. The underlying assumption is that the Bible is just hopelessly unclear. I don't know what Jim Bob here thinks that someone would be discovering in a manuscript. I mean, if you discover a new manuscript, guess what? We've got thousands and thousands of manuscripts. So you just like figure out what page of the Bible you're dealing with or something like that. But according to Jim Bob, you find a new manuscript, and
all right,
the idea that
I'm gonna say this once. I've said it a couple of times, but I'm gonna say it once again. And so because this is a repeated theme, I see. Let me see here. Buds with a $5 member chat says, how much can you put the blame on Jay for what his community does without his direction? Well, that's part of the lie, my friend, is a lot of it is with his direction. It filters through his mods, etc., who tell people what to do. It's not an accident. And if you watch the rest of this, which we will, you'll see that this is not something that we made up. Actually, former Ortho Bro and Dire Cord mods in this are referenced, and you'll see what I mean. This might be an educational period for you. Once again, thank you for helping keep the lights on. We really appreciate it, because we're up to $20, folks. $20, and my keyboard is not working, or my brain's not working, and hopefully it's the latter. So we're going to put that down to there, and that is going to become 10. But you'll see, it gets worse. It gets worse. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And unfortunately, this is one heck of a rabbit hole that I know. But to address what people are saying about Andrew Wilson, Andrew has the same and similar objections to Protestantism, but he's not deep in the apologetics argument or research or trying to be a source of education. Thank you, Wally. I agree with you 100% on that. He is mostly politics, has flat out said he does not like doing the apologetics thing. Estratio says, does Andrew Wilson really have a different cadence? Yeah, he does. Andrew Wilson is funny. I'm sorry to be just that direct. Andrew Wilson's actually funny. Like, Jay Dyer is he's like that obnoxious kind of comedian you just want to throw off the stage. There's that guy who talks about that the liberals want to eat you and destroy you and stuff like that. Like, he's like that, a lot like that. But not funny. So yeah, that's the big difference, is that Andrew actually is entertaining, and Jay Dyer is basically a glorified reporter. Outside of that, so I hear people say that a lot. I get it. A lot of people who don't like Ortho Bros don't like Andrew Wilson. I don't care. My opinion is based on my opinion on Jay, my opinion on Andrew. I see them as two different people, and I will never link them together, even if you guys want me to. No matter how many people ask, I'm not going to do it. I don't care. So that's my view. Besides those three, who would count as an Ortho Bro? Thousands, my friend. Thousands.
You could interpret or understand what is in that manuscript is something laughable to them. Like, you couldn't understand it. You couldn't understand a page of the Bible if you got it without your church telling you what it means. And so I saw this over and over again, but I responded. I said, it's weird how they think the Bible is so hopelessly unclear and so thoroughly confusing that it can't be understood. Yes, unclear. The Bible is so clear that after everyone reads it, it's remarked doctrines. You definitely, there are oft, and therefore, and I said, notice and ask for doc again. Why would you read the Bible? I never got that impression from it. Here too, by going deeper off. So I have to say that's a ton of contempt. Simply rely on the authority. Debate whether I think it's hopelessly unclear. What is the standard by which we're judging anything? So anyway, these are some of the issues aren't allowed to question them on anything, lest you be kicked out of the group. And you don't want to be kicked out of the group because now you're joining a group not for fun, as you would if you didn't feel like you're being attacked. But if you feel like you're being attacked, then you're kind of joining a group for your protection and security. And you definitely don't want to be kicked out of that group. And so you have to.
Okay, David, I don't know if you could hear me. I do apologize. There was kind of a little freeze up. This is the first freeze up out of the entire live stream. So I think we're okay. I'm just going to.
All right. So yeah, this is where it starts to get good. I'm sorry I put you through that. He does like this meta analysis of Jim Bob for way too long, and it's kind of stupid. But this is the part that's interesting. This is where he gets into some of the other stuff. Yeah, okay. I used to go. I hate to go there, but who are the majority of these Orthodox? Are they Russian? Are they Greek or Coptic? No, they're converts. And for the most part, I think they're of European extraction and descent. There's some of African American descent. And basically, they're like, I mean, I hate to say this, but they're like groypers with a different hat on. I mean, that's my view. Rokor and Pian Serbs, but not ethnically Rokor and Pian. They're not ethnic Russians or ethnic Serbs for the most part. There's a few, but most are just converts.
Remove myself and then put your slides back up and see. And then I'm going to remove.
Oh, yeah, this article. I remember this.
We all good?
Yes, you can start whenever you want.
This is not something that is unique to the Orthobros here. This is affecting tons and tons of people. Tons of people feel like they're being attacked, and so are joining groups. And then once you join the group, whether that's a political party or anything else, then you have to line up with your group on everything, or you have to worry about being kicked out. And so, kind of rough situation for lots of people right now. But you have to go along with everything the Orthobros say if you want the protection of the Orthobros, as we'll see. All right, so this is New York Times article, Orthodox church pews are overflowing with converts. We're going to look at a couple things about people converting to Eastern Orthodoxy, and then we'll sort of zero in on the Orthobros. So we're going to read a bunch of passages. I'll try to read some of these kind of rapid fire because I want to get through a bunch of them to give people an overview. Something is changing in an otherwise quiet corner of Christianity in the United States, one that prides itself on how little it has changed over time. Priests are swapping stories about record attendance numbers. Older members are adjusting, or not, to the influx of new attendees. Parishes are strategizing about how to accommodate more prospective converts than existing clergy can reasonably handle on their own. They don't even know what to do with all the new converts. They don't have.
Spiridon says, so it's safe to say Father Seraphim Rose will be their patron saint. No, that's not safe to say at all. More people are discovering, as we've brought it up and other people have brought it up, that the writings of Father Seraphim Rose, Saint Seraphim Rose, for those who have glorified him, he would have hated this phenomenon, but his books were changed. Like where he's talking about, the Rokor and the True Orthodox of Greece being the only bastions of Orthodoxy, and then talking later about the True Orthodox in Romania and Bulgaria. Before his passing, he was an Orthodox traditionalist. He was a True Orthodox sympathizer. He was a True Orthodox guy. So the point is, they don't even like him. They like the YouTube version of him put out by people like Father Paul Baba and World War Z, so on and so forth. They don't like him. They like the curated version of him, the one that's not real. So keep that in mind.
Have enough clergy. Across the country, the ancient tradition of Orthodox Christianity is attracting energetic new adherents, especially among conservative young men. They're drawn to what they describe as a more demanding, even difficult practice of Christianity. Echoing some of the rhetoric of the so-called manosphere, new waves of young converts say orthodoxy offers them hard truths and affirms their masculinity. Orthodox Christians in the United States are younger and more male than many other Christian groups here. More than 60% of them are men, and that's a huge difference between other Christian groups. Matter of fact, I think they say that. More than 60% of them are men, compared with 46% of evangelicals, according to Pew Research Center. Orthodox Christians are also much younger, with 24% of adult adherents younger than 30, compared with 14% of evangelicals. The gaps are the same as those between Orthodox Christians and Catholics. So the converts to the Orthodox Church, they're swaying massively in the direction of male and young. They're younger and they're more male. Some converts report approvingly that Orthodoxy has a more masculine feel than other traditions. Priests who must be male and can marry often have large beards and big families. Orthodoxy asks practitioners to make sacrifices like fasting rather than offering them emotional contemporary music and therapeutic sermons, which critics describe as the typical evangelical megachurch experience. And we'll see a little bit about this here, but that's kind of all over the place. There are tons of young people who just don't like the megachurch experience and they're looking for something more traditional. And starts going on to it's not a terribly long article, but they eventually get into some of the negative sides, especially connected to the Orthobros. It says certain corners of the Orthodox internet are not just conservative or traditionalist, but openly racist and anti-Semitic, with several far-right figures converting in recent years. In the South, there is a strain of neo-Confederate orthodoxy that marries white supremacy and Orthodox practice. Matthew Heimbach, who organized the notorious Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017, had been excommunicated from the Antiochian Orthodox Church, but joined another branch. The Orthodox Christian writer Rod Dreher warned recently that anti-Semitism is spreading like a virus among religious conservatives of the Zoomer generation, including among the Orthodox. In interviews, parish priests said they see it as part of their jobs to acculturate orthobros with extreme views to parish life, which they insisted was far removed from the violent rhetoric online. But critics say that top-notch church leaders rarely condemn even the most noxious rhetoric from high-profile Orthodox Christians. We won't talk about this much, but this is an issue to think about. You have church leaders are aware of what's going on online. They're aware of what's going on with the orthobros and some of their views they're spreading, lots of issues with misogyny and other issues. They're aware of these issues and they have a couple reactions. Some of them actually have spoken out against it. Others still see it as something positive, not necessarily the views espoused, but hey, if it's getting young people into church, if what's going on X is somehow bringing new people into the church, well, you know, that's still a good thing. And some of them have a kind of hopeful attitude for the future. They think that, well, even if someone has some problematic views, that they got online, well, then by being in the church, we'll kind of, you know, weed those views out of them over time. So it's not really a terrible problem. People are going to find out. They're going to see the error of their ways over time. And we'll see some similar things as we go through here. But this I put this one up just because it's interesting, because this is from a French media site on trends in the world. So this is L'Adn, Orthobros, why orthodoxy appeals to young American men. Look at just a couple passages here. Andrew Brodsky appears in his modest West Virginia bedroom. Behind him hangs an Orthodox liturgical banner adorned with a cross and Greek inscriptions. The 21-year-old shows us his personal space, lingering at a small altar topped with Orthodox icons. The senses play a vital role in orthodoxy, he explains. You see the icon, you smell the incense, you listen to the ancient chants. It was during a sleepless night that Andrew discovered the Orthodox faith. One night when I couldn't sleep, I was listening to a playlist and suddenly Orthodox chants started. I had never heard anything like it, he recounts. When I entered the church for my first liturgy, I felt exactly the same thing. It was as if I was exactly where I was meant to be. Andrew exemplifies a trend that has been emerging in the United States for the past few years. A student of psychology and theology, a conservative and single, he shares several characteristics with new converts to orthodoxy. Young men seeking a more traditional and masculine form of Christianity. That's something that comes up over and over again. It's masculine. Baptized Catholic and then Protestant, he found his path in orthodoxy after a spiritual quest that began on YouTube. That's another important feature of these trends, is that it starts on social media. Channels like Orthodox Ethos and Ancient Faith Radio, or the videos of Father Spiridon Bailey, serve as a gateway to this tradition, a digital phenomenon that is part of a quest for religious authenticity.
All right, so let's see what we got in comments here. The depth of the world stuff they like, yeah, but even that got co-opted, unfortunately. Rokor is going to drop Moscow, I believe. No. There's like 2, maybe 3 bishops left who remember Rokor at its nadir or nadir. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but its lowest point. Is Rod Dreher a Zionist? I don't know enough about Rod Dreher to answer that question. Low-key anti-Semitism has always been a thing among the Orthodox. Yeah. To some degree, unfortunately, that's true. But, you know, to some degree, maybe if, certain people didn't make it their goal to kill us, you know? Define authenticity. Who defines authenticity? So it's Father Boniface. Well, again, the point is it's a subjective thing. It's a lot of people fell for the smells and bells. That's the first thing I thought of when I heard this. So we'll see.
According to several articles published in the New York Post and the Telegraph in late 2024, American Orthodox parishes saw an increase of nearly 80% in conversions in 2022 compared to pre-pandemic levels. Even more significant, 60% of these converts were men, whereas most Western Christian denominations include more women. On the ground, testimonies from priests confirm this trend. The last 4 to 5 years have seen a surge. This is happening massively all over the country, says Father Josiah Trenham, who runs St. Andrew's Orthodox Church in Riverside, California. This phenomenon, however, should be put into perspective. According to data from the Pew Research Center, Orthodox Christians represent only about 1% of the American population, or approximately 1.8 million adherents. Historically, Orthodoxy in the United States has always been primarily linked to immigration from Orthodox countries: Greece, Russia, Ukraine, Romania. In Western Europe, historian Jean-Francois Meyer observes that some scattered signs of an unusual increase in young people interested in Orthodoxy. The sample size is insufficient to draw conclusions, but he senses that something may be emerging. So this is talking about Western Europe, so not just the United States. Another recurring factor is the feeling that Western churches have become feminized. This criticism targets Protestantism, which allows women to become pastors, and post-Vatican II Catholicism. They believe that Vatican II feminized the Catholic Church, explains Sarah Riccardi-Swartz. This search for traditional masculinity is accompanied by tensions. The anthropologist recounts a telling incident. During a conference in Boston, women carried icons in a procession. A video was published, and one of the women received hate messages and death threats. Women, especially younger women, are disillusioned. So this is the flip side. Women, especially younger women, are disillusioned.
Now, to be fair, we all know the stories of Sarah Riccardi-Swartz. I mean, this may be an exaggeration or an under-exaggeration, because I hate to say it, but the feminist World Orthodox stuff, they're intentionally provocative. And so, unfortunately, this sort of stuff will happen. But I'm not going to white knight it. So, let me see here. Anti-Semitism is a modern notion. Everyone forgets the Jewish population in many countries isolated themselves because of their zealotry. This is coming from a guy who converted from Judaism. Very true, Reader John. Very true. Sunrise says, Reader John is right. Ustratio says, you're right. All right. Let's continue.
With the Orthodox Church today because they see incredibly misogynistic men arriving, the anthropologist also observes. Orthodox women by training are leaving the church in the face of this wave of new converts with problematic rhetoric. And that's...
Before I go on, I have to point out that a lot of the feminist kind of response to the Ortho Bros is also partially institutional. Despite how people like Jay Dyer present it, there is a lot of institutional feminism and white knighting in World Orthodoxy. So it is bound to be a problem. It's something that I really need to throw in there, because you can get a mistaken impression until you actually show up. And that's, again, why Orthodoxy is not online. So
it's becoming an issue in the Orthodox Church that there aren't enough women to go around for the young men, and the young women in the church are very frequently not interested in the orthobro types. So the young women are dating men outside the church, and the young men inside the church can't find women to date. So they have an ongoing issue that they're going to have to deal with there. Now, this is the last one, but I wanted to check out a bunch of...
This one, by the way, for those watching, if you are in that kind of ortho bro kind of group, etc., you really should find this article. It's actually pretty telling. It's not friendly to us, to true Orthodox. It actually lumps the Ortho Bros in with us, which is absolutely incorrect, but just so you know.
Passages from this, because this is an article from Noah Jefferson. I think about 3 years ago he posted this, but he was one of the Ortho Bros. He was part of the community. He was one of the moderators for their Discord server where a lot of this was going on. So we'll check this out to get an insider's view of the Ortho Bro community. This is a long article. We're going to check out some passages, but I would encourage you to check out the article by Noah Jefferson.
Okay, before checking out those passages, I see Buzz with Buds. Definitely, this is the part to see. I assume you're saying World Orthodox. Mount Athos is technically self-governing, but since the 70s, they did put in the Ecumenical Patriarchate, put in its preferred abbots. Esphigmenu and a couple of other skeets resisted. There were other resistors, but their leadership was eventually replaced. Whereas Esphigmenu walled itself off and then literally became walled off by a siege by the Ecumenical Patriarchate, by the state, by the Greek state on behalf of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. I would highly recommend going to esphigmenu.com to learn more about that. And I am going to put that in the chat links. So You will see that in just a second. You can learn more about the situation of the monks of Esphigmenou on Mount Athos, the largest monastery on Mount Athos. So,
for more detail. He says, my name is Noah Jefferson. I'm a convert from Protestantism to Holy Orthodoxy and hold a Master of Theological Studies with a concentration in Orthodox and Eastern Christian Studies from Trinity College, University of Toronto. I'm publishing this article only after receiving permission to do so from my Archbishop, Parish Priest, and Spiritual Father. He had to put that there because that would be one of the things people, the Orthobros would object to. Who gave you permission? Who gave you permission to speak about this thing, even though they speak pretty frequently without any sort of authority? My journey to Orthodoxy is likely very familiar in some ways. As a non-denominational Protestant, I become disillusioned and dissatisfied with my grab basket theology, ahistorical understanding of Christianity, and especially my isolated sectarian, non-Catholic understanding of the church. The awakening of my theological consciousness in my mid-teens occurred during a brief stint of my family moving to a communal Protestant community. One of the reasons for this being to try and live like the Church of Acts. So that would seem like a good idea. Let's go live like the Church of Acts. Needless to say, the experience was not a good one, and the community's oppressive atmosphere only forced my needing to move from an unconscious to a reasoned faith with the question of the church as my primary focus. During my Bachelor of Theology degree program, I became convinced by orthodoxy that the Eastern Orthodox Church is the true church and its faith the true faith through my own research and the influence of an Orthodox friend of the family. As I lived a rather isolated rural lifestyle, having been homeschooled until college, my interaction with orthodoxy was initially primarily digital. That is, again, very important feature. People are learning about orthodoxy, the Orthodox Church, online instead of just from an Eastern Orthodox priest. And so where are they ending up when they're doing these studies? They're ending up very frequently talking to the Orthobros. I was motivated to seek out the church in my real life, and so took trips to a wonderful Antiochian parish. However, due to the great travel distance, visits were necessarily infrequent and no legitimate catechesis was possible. Thus, the internet continued to be my catechist for quite some time. Another very important feature there, 1%, as I mentioned, about 1% of people in America are Orthodox Christians. And that means that you don't have a ton of Orthodox churches. You have them, in major cities and stuff like that. But some people are just, wherever they are, they're 10 hours away from the closest Orthodox church. And so what do? They go online. They go online to interact with other Orthodox Christians. And that leads them to the Orthobros. My formation by these influences, however, took time, as distance still only allowed. By the way, I'm not reading straight through, so this kind of jumps. I'm kind of jumping around here, so this isn't always following what was just said. My formation by these influences, however, took time, as distance still only allowed relatively infrequent visits to my parish. And unfortunately, on June 13th, 2020, I learned of and joined. Notice he says, unfortunately, on June 13th, 2020, I learned of and joined the Orthodox Christian Discord server run by Jay Dyer, Father Deacon Ananias Soren, and his moderator team, which came to include other online Orthodox influencers, such as David Erhin. At the beginning, I was not part of this circle, of course, as I was simply looking for interaction with other Orthodox who had the same love for theology as myself. And it appeared to me that I had found such. So found a nice little online Orthodox church, Orthodox Christian Discord server. I soon made friends, and as a right-wing leaning individual at the time, it was easy to acclimate to and become desensitized to the slurs and vulgarity used against those they considered degenerate, to identify with the theological views continually presented as Orthodox. In other words, whatever they're telling you is Orthodox, then you start identifying with those views as the Orthodox views, and to adopt the same attitude towards the non-Orthodox as this apologetics community did. Of course, even when foolishly operating under a rigorous bent and acting in a manner that, while accepted and encouraged by the community, I am now ashamed of, I was still highly educated and sensitive to the right practice of theology, and so I was soon asked to join the moderator team for the server. Naively, I accepted. Again, it says naively here. I'm a bit of a naturally nervous person, socially awkward.
It is worth noting, and again, I would suggest looking for Noah Jefferson's article. Forget the name of his Substack. It's something like The Good Arc or something. Hold on. Let me just see if I can find it. But definitely you want to read The Open Arc, and you want to read the whole article. The guy was educated as a standard Orthodox ecumenist. This is something that's less talked about, but he was, for lack of a better word, raised, he was educated in the traditional ecumenist way. So he knew for a fact that there was something wrong here, but he also, as you can see from the article, needed friends. So
awkward and naive, yet I had made friends, or so I thought. So for many months, I had overlooked the distortion of orthodoxy, not to mention neglect of common human decency and integrity, which I found around me. However, as is my way, my spirit came to a sort of boiling point, for lack of a better phrase, and I could no longer take it. The orthodoxy I had learned in my education from the great theologians of the 20th century, in which the Orthodox theological tradition and identity was not in tension with, but was enriched by ecumenism, was something I could not compromise or suppress for the short-sighted purposes of an online apologetics ring. However, as soon as I voiced my concerns, I quickly found out that I was not part of a theological club in which free thought was tolerable, let alone in a group of friends. I was in a cult. And he says this throughout his article. Talks about their cult tactics and how they behave like a cult. Eventually, he, so again, just filling in the gaps there. Eventually, he realized he didn't want anything to do with this and was ashamed of the articles that he'd posted on.
He skips a lot. That's why I personally recommend, I might actually just find the article and put a link to it, because let me see here. Yeah, give me a second. I think this was also his biggest article. But the actual link, if you do want to read the full article, where he talks about how eventually he realizes this is all in conflict with what he thinks is the Orthodox tradition, which is ecumenism, so on and so forth. This is the stuff that, unfortunately, Jay and Co will hide from you. That this is really the official position of World Orthodoxy. And look, I have disagreements with World Orthodox all the time who are honest about it. People like Ethan Wayne, so on and so forth. But what they don't want, what the Orthodox don't want to admit, is that they really aren't in either camp. They're not with us, and they're not with what is the hierarchical World Orthodox Church. And that's something that people have to wrestle with. But the article, I just linked it, so let's continue on. This is not much longer. This has it is 750. It's got about 50. I might just get, when you get sick of it, we've got supposedly 28 minutes, but it'll be lowered because it's at 1.5. So about 21 minutes. So whenever y'all want to stop it, I will stop it.
And some of the sites and so on. So he says, I emailed the editor of Patristic Faith to request the unpublishing of my articles from their site, as I no longer wanted to have any association with their ministry whatsoever. However, instead of simply removing my articles that are owned by me and not Patristic Faith, after receiving my request, Patristic Faith editor Chase Mudd asked why I was requesting such, and I answered honestly, but in hindsight, perhaps foolishly, with the following. So this is his response. To put it bluntly, besides the ill treatment I've received from several affiliated with the site on another platform, I do not agree with the version of orthodoxy it pushes, a mixture of radical right-wing politics, sectarian ecclesiology, eschatological frenzy, and an evangelical funding mindset transposed onto orthodoxy, presenting online cults of personality under the guise of traditionalism, and whose only use for theology is as ballistics against the other. So why do you guys learn any theology? To weaponize it so that you can attack other people. I do not believe the views continually expressed on this site are representative of the Orthodox hierarchy or the best theologians of our time, let alone the ancient fathers. Nor is any serious theology being or going to be done here. Consequently, I have no desire to have my name associated with this platform. Important that he mentions that they're not doing serious theology there. And that's something that even before I started really interacting with these guys last month, I noticed. I talked to an Orthodox priest, I think it was last year. Yeah, it was last year. And it was just, he offered me a ride around, then offered me a ride to the airport and so on. He was talking about things, but I learned all kinds of things about the Orthodox Church there. I can't think of anything I learned from the Orthobros. It seems like 90% of what I had seen from the Orthobros was just insults and attacking anyone who happened to disagree with one of their heroes, their online heroes, over something. My above email was sent privately to Patristic Faith editor Chase Mudd on January 29, 2023, in order to have my articles, which are my property, removed from the Patristic Faith website. However, after a week, my email still had not been answered, and due to what transpired next, I assume my private request to the editor was circulated among the clergy board, which supposedly runs the site, according to Father Deacon Ananias Sorum, until it was given to Jay Dyer, who on February 6, 2023, entered the Discord server I was now a member of, and doxed my real name for all to see, while also labeling me a gay Fortumite, no doubt in the spirit of so-called patristic rhetoric. After the above interaction, Jay Dyer messaged me privately with more insults and the threat that he would dox me far more publicly by stating, "You decided to become a weasel and passive-aggressively subvert. You're a scumbag, and I will publicly live stream and discuss your email and who you are, or you can leave us and me out of your BS." So in other words, don't complain about anything they do or say. The owner of the server I was frequenting, who shall remain nameless, as I have no desire to see said owner doxed, harassed, or publicly attacked on social media by Jay Dyer or his circle, you can't even bring people up, then messaged me and said that Jay Dyer threatened him in the past as well. In further discussion, he relayed that Jay Dyer and his cronies act like a mafia over the online Orthodox community, and that another online apologist, who will also remain nameless, whose academic credentials, theological knowledge, and ecumenical approach I cannot praise highly enough, had to censor his own content dealing with ecumenism because he unfortunately is very reliant on Jay Dyer's circle for monetary revenue and does not wish to become the new target of their cyber gang. So now you have even very knowledgeable Orthodox Christians, educated. They can't say something that puts them against the group because they're becoming dependent on the Orthobro community. What is this online environment? It is virtual, so it is not real. What danger could come from there? Yeah, keep thinking that. Sadly, the above may be the view of many in the church hierarchy when it comes to the new digital age we all find ourselves in. And such a view is undoubtedly dangerous to hold, as it is common knowledge that schismatics and rigorists have not only been able to successfully disseminate their ideas through the internet, especially anti-ecumenism, but
No, schismatics and rigorous, he means us. So just to clarify.
have been able to do so far more successfully at times than the hierarchy has been able to spread a refutation of such, let alone the obverse truth. In other words, the orthobros circulate an idea, even if it's wrong, and clergy or something want to respond to it, they don't have the reach of the orthobros. And so you can't refute or undermine it. You don't have the reach. Unless action is taken, and taken expediently and authoritatively, the dire state of affairs we all find ourselves in will undoubtedly only become far, far worse. I can guarantee you. The Orthodox Christian Discord server, founded by Jay Dyer with the support of Father Deacon Ananias Sorum and now run by David Erhan, is a server said to be centered around Orthodox apologetics, but it especially functions as a vast forum for catechesis. Thousands of inquirers and catechumens flock to the server to learn everything they need to know about orthodoxy, including what the Orthodox mindset is, and they learn this by being directed to the videos of the inner circle of apologists who run the server, and by conversing with the moderators who are expected to promote the viewpoints of those who run the server. So again, you have a tiny fraction of the population of the US who are Orthodox Christians, not nearly as many Orthodox churches as Protestant churches or Catholic churches, tons of people who are therefore learning about Orthodox Christianity online. They end up with the orthobros here, and when they're asking questions, they're being sent to the videos of the orthobros and the materials of the orthobros, and they're being educated by the orthobros.
Yeah. Okay, let me get to some comments and questions. Let's continue. I mean, I hate to say it, but Father Moses McPherson said drinking out of straws and soup is gay. Mr. Priest said using a straw and eating soup is gay. Estratius says a quarter of the monks are results non-commemorators. Buzz with Buzz, some Athos is in schism within itself. Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, Father Deacon, Dr. Deacon, Ananias, and David Erhan are ortho bros. And to answer that last question there on the bottom, yes, so is Father Moses McPherson, basically. Or the bros, racism, misogyny, profanity, no love. So the guy became an ecumenist. No, the guy was already an ecumenist. He just shut it down to be an ortho bro. Noah, openly ecumenist versus ortho bros, ecumenist in denial. Exactly. Sunrise is super rigorous. Is Father Moses McPherson an ortho bro? Yeah, he kind of took joined the role to get in there. I would say, yeah, lol. All right, so we're in those last few minutes. Let me know when you want to stop, or I'll stop it when he's done talking.
There are also clergy who become members of the server and who are given a special status to differentiate themselves from other members, but they are also expected to toe the line. And so for the most part, they hardly ever interact with members from what I observed when I was a moderator. The clergy are used by the server for status. Routinely, it will be claimed that an online influencer...
But what about the Gen Z online Orthodox father? I think that if you're, of a certain age, I'm not going to generalize, in the same way, like when people say, all boomers. Now, granted, you can generally, but I would say the Gen Z online Orthodox, for the most part, a lot of them have been captured by the Orthobro movement. Even among family members, unfortunately. And so you have to find yourself, you're not really fighting with doctrinal questions. Like, the issue is not even about ecumenism. It becomes about popularity. It becomes about social status, where people start to feel like if they're not part of the in-group, they're outsiders. This has been especially hard on many true Orthodox youth. Because, all of a sudden they have these people they think are their friends, and all of a sudden it turns out you basically have to worship, people. So it is culty, and it is unfair. And I feel, my view is that the true Orthodox youth, the Gen Z true Orthodox that come out of this, are going to be some of the strongest Orthodox that have ever existed, because they will be dealing with they will have dealt with the worst of peer pressure and the worst in social pressure at the most sensitive times in their lives. So on the one hand, I feel bad for what they're going through. And on the other hand, I know that if they get through it, God willing, and most of them should, God willing, they'll be some of the strongest Orthodox that have ever existed. And we could maybe, just maybe, There might, and I'm not saying that I don't want Jesus to come back. I do, come Lord Jesus. But just maybe we might see a heroic generation of Orthodox yet again. And so, yeah, that's my take. Let's continue.
Or his server has clergy backing by pointing to their presence in his server. So if you can get a priest on your side in the server, the priest doesn't have to do much of anything. Now the priest has the community there to help popularize whatever he's saying, but whoever has the priest in their server can then say, hey, this isn't just us, we have clergy backing here. So who exactly are the ones determining the faith formation of thousands of Orthodox converts? Again, we've seen tons of young Orthodox converts in the US and now apparently in Western Europe. Lots of the stuff going on, though, is online. So who are the people determining the faith formation of these converts? They are two men, Jay Dyer and David Aaron. Jay Dyer runs a YouTube channel which has for its main content geopolitical analysis decrying the Western Atlanticist elites, film analysis steeped in conspiracy theory, and Orthodox apologetics, which can be summed up as Neopalamism mixed with presuppositional apologetics originating from 20th century Reformed theology, put in the service of a rigorous ecclesiology, opposed to ecumenism, and an apologetic method in which one can refute all other worldviews without studying them by simply identifying certain flaws in their presuppositions, while asserting orthodoxy gives the only coherent and justifiable worldview. So you can say anything you want, you're not part of the true church, you don't have the proper foundation, and therefore what you're saying is incoherent. Dyer has a sizable, enormous, in Orthodox circles, social media following, 39,000 Twitter followers, 107,000 YouTube subscribers, and is also a frequent guest and host for the infamous Alex Jones InfoWars show. David Aaron is Dyer's protege, a young man in his 20s from Turkey, and the man who currently runs Jay Dyer's Orthodox Christian Discord server. Aaron also does geopolitical analysis through his YouTube channel, for example, supporting Russia in its war against Ukraine, but most of his work is apologetics against Oriental Orthodox and the Assyrian Church of the East, lambasting them as heretics and attempting to undermine the agreed ecumenical statements between our churches in the eyes of the online community. That is one of the big problems that Noah had here. He's more ecumenically minded than the Orthobros allow. Aaron is also known online.
Okay, some comments here. What about the Gen Z online Orthodox father? I think I've addressed that. The Orthodox followers are Gen Z. Yep, addressed that. Sunrise says, I would think Orthodox Kyle would be bigger than Erhan. That's possible. I haven't checked Orthodox Kyle's numbers, but I will say that this is a 3-year-old article. So, for example, like Dyer doesn't have 107 followers, 1,000 followers on YouTube. He has 165,000. Yeah. Back when this was written, I think, for all the people, mawing about Andrew Wilson, he had like 30,000 followers here, and now he's got like 300,000. So that's why I don't consider him part of the same crowd. But I don't know about Orthodox Kyle's numbers. I haven't paid too much attention. And there have been other people who have come up too, like Alex Soren and Cleve. Neopalamism. I feel like Neopalamism is a nice way of saying I haven't studied Palimism well. That's my view.
Line as a misogynist, having early in his YouTube career even made a video asserting that women are not made in the image of God, according to the fathers, and consistently engaging in misogynist rhetoric on his social media platforms.
I don't think David Erhan should talk about women at all. I mean, I'm not even going to say it. Erhan being part of the EP and railing against, and railing against the Monophysites and the Assyrians is laughable. Absolutely. Because he, of all people, having lived in that area, having known of the ecumenical patriarchate, would know exactly how ecumenist he is. And so he's in some ways the worst case of denial. He's not even in denial. He's just lying. He's a propagandist. But it's really shameful, the whole thing. We're almost done here, I think.
These two laymen, Jay Dyer and David Aaron, are dictating the catechetical formation of the next generation of Orthodox, not only converts, but also cradle-born, so people who were born into the Orthodox Church. These guys are the ones educating them. The moderation team on the Discord server they run is expected to think like them and enforce their views to be a part of the inner circle from which they may create more apologists to spread their personal version of orthodoxy. Those on the server who express a different vision of orthodoxy are ridiculed and expected to change their tune, and if they do not do so, are banned and ostracized. Effectively, such a cyber banning is an excommunication in the minds of members. If you're kicked out of the group, you are apparently excommunicated. It says, in fact, upon being banned from Jay Dyer's server, I personally was messaged by someone sincerely wondering if I had apostatized from orthodoxy. So he gets kicked off the server, and people think he's left the Orthodox Church, because that's all some of these young people know as orthodoxy. It's this Discord server.
Yeah.
The users of this server do not know sound orthodoxy from false. They are simply attracted by the assurance the online influencers give them through winning debates, sympathize with the moral struggle against degeneracy that is familiar to them, coming especially from moralist evangelicalism, identify with the right-wing nationalist atmosphere, and rally around their apologists as internet celebrities who use the same language and online mannerisms of right-wing meme culture as they do. Thus, in effect, such is intellectual orthodoxy to them. Theology is simply the weapon. He comes back to this. He mentioned this earlier. Theology is simply the weapon of this cultic mindset, and any expression of orthodox thought which would challenge this innately hostile beast, affirming the validity of heterodox sacraments, is deemed by its gatekeepers as confusing inquirers and something to be banned, something which would erode the sectarian us versus them version of orthodoxy they are inculcating in a whole online generation to be aimed at anyone they please, not to mention aim them into their wallets. Unsurprisingly, with such a massive influence in a relatively small online community, it goes beyond its initial bounds and exerts pressure on others. It's a long quotation here. We only got a few minutes left, so I'll zoom through this. Thus, other Orthodox communities on Discord are pressured to agree with the stance of Dyer and his influencer posse, and any which do not are labeled with the usual dog whistles to make it clear they are to be avoided. And God forbid you gain respect for your theological knowledge or develop a following and therefore appear on their radar. As if you do, Dyer's posse will monitor your posts to determine your compatibility with them and ability to be molded. You have to be moldable. If you're not compatible with them, you are labeled as to be avoided. And if you're influential enough and disagree with them on something or allude to them in a way they don't like, you will be contacted likely by Jay Dyer himself, demanding that you reconcile, by which is meant submission and taking back any comments made. As one who is part of their group and foolish enough to let them know who I am, I know full well how they threaten to dox you and smear you online unless you stay silent. So he goes on, it is in no uncertain terms a dangerous cult led by seemingly mentally unstable charismatic leaders, complete with shunning and moral justification for treating the one shunned in otherwise morally reprehensible ways. It is therefore a church within a church, and a whole generation is being catechized into it. One could say it is very Gnostic, despite the misuse that term receives, and thus...
Okay. That was funny. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is basically the end of the thing. I guess nobody's actually said they want to stop it. There's 13 minutes left, which I guess will be like 7 minutes at 1.5. So I'm waiting. Whenever somebody says, please end this video.
Subversive. Again, I'd encourage everyone who wants to learn more about the Orthobros to read that entire article. Again, it's pretty long, but he goes into a lot of detail, and he talks more about it than what I've just covered right there. That was just some highlights. But with these last couple minutes we have, want to talk about kind of what's going to happen, and I already noted parallels with the Dawa Bros. Well, there's another huge parallel with the Dawa Bros that should cause Eastern Orthodox leaders to take more note of this than they've been doing. What happened with the Dawa Bros was, historically, it was Muslim scholars or their handpicked spokesmen who would represent Islam. Back in the day, and I remember these times, if you wanted to debate a Muslim 25 years ago, you had to go to a Muslim organization, and they would pick their debater, and then you would agree on a topic and so on. Eventually got to the internet, and anyone who could get a following online could start debating Islam and represent Islam in online debates. Well, all of a sudden you started getting people who didn't have the scholarly background, and they started saying all kinds of things, but they kept getting more and more popular because they're online. Eventually you started having the Muslim scholars trying to respond, but the Muslim scholar, who has very few followers on whatever social media he has, is completely eclipsed by the Muslim Dawa Bro, who has 1.3 million people on his. And so they couldn't compete. The scholar objects and says, what you're saying is wrong. And then this Dawa Bro and his fans could just completely overwhelm the scholar. And now the scholars are completely helpless because the Dawa Bros, they got the streets. Well, something similar is happening now with the Ortho Bros. Again, lots of Eastern Orthodox leaders are happy that new people are coming into the church, but who's leading these people, and who's more popular? Well, it's the online people. And so as their online orthobros do more and more things to upset and horrify people, these guys are losing their ability to crack down. And so they're in a very awkward situation where short term, yeah, you're going to get more people interested in Eastern Orthodoxy, but long term, you're creating a generation of people that is actually going to have more of an impact on the young Orthodox community than you do. And when you start realizing they're pushing these young people in a direction that you don't want them to go, there will be absolutely nothing you can do about it at that point, because they'll just say you're jealous of their influence.
All right. Thank you for that, David. I appreciate that. I just want to let folks have a heads up. We are now going to go into our last 10-minute intermission, and then we will be joined by all of the speakers. I'm going to make sure.
Okay. That was it. That was the end. So that is what we're now going to remove. Yeah, I was not doing the whole 9 hours. I apologize, but that was never going to happen. And so let's see here. Where did Soren come from? Well, he is an ortho bro, but he's also, he was a lawyer. He is a lawyer, and so he actually has skill in debating. So I don't want to make it sound like it's just because ortho bros propped him up. I'm sure that there was some propping involved, but there was also the fact that he's actually good at what he does. That said, I think he would be better if he used the more traditional form of apologetic, which we've talked about now nonstop until we got to this video, because that would help him be a better apologist rather than a cardboard cutout. But in any case, Sunrise says we're good for the whole 9 hours. I am not. This was to test. I wanted to test to see how things were working. Oliver Zwinnick says, greetings from Poland. Poland, Father Joseph, greetings. And basically, I wanted to go through a couple of things, and I wanted to cover one of the basics on apologetics, and also cover this video so I can turn these into clips. Of course, it would be that people would point out that I do need to turn other videos into clips as well. So I have a lot of clips to work on. But in any case, yeah, this is, I think this is going to be it for me today. I am pretty tired. As I mentioned, kind of a weird day yesterday. But we've gone almost 3 hours. Did we hit our goal? Not even close. Not even close. I mean, we were not even, no one was expecting this. So I made a whole $20, and thank you for that, by the way. Again, remember, it's not, while it does actually pay the bills, I do not actually the purpose of this is to help people, and paying the bills is kind of a secondary bonus and benefits. Sunrise says, have a good evening all. Hope you feel better, Father. Thank you. I hope so too. I'm patched up a little bit, so I think I'll be okay, God willing, and we'll see. And in any case, all I am going to say now is just, thanks to everyone who had questions, who had comments, etc. Again, help keep the lights on. Support us by subscribing or donating at NFTU.net with various options like PayPal, Cash App, BTC, LTC, or XMR, or on Give Send Go, or just look in the description. Again, my name is Father Joseph Swayden. If this has been helpful to you, please like and subscribe. And other than that, have a great day, everyone. And through the prayers of Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us.